everybody. Hope you're having a good morning, afternoon, or evening in whichever part of the world you're in. So I was actually flipping through the book and I realized I don't think I finished what chapter was I on? 6. Sorry, I can't read Roman numerals that fast. You would think I can, but I actually can't. I don't know if I put the music down last time. I think I turned it off last time, if I'm being quite honest. Yeah. So we're actually like halfway through chapter 6 of Dracula. I think I was gonna try and read through it, but then my throat just like couldn't handle talking anymore at that point. I don't even know which part we were at, if I'm being quite honest. I think Dr. Seward's diary is where we left off, perhaps. I'm not too sure. It's been about, what, 2 weeks? 3 weeks? Hi, Kamari, welcome! I can't remember when they last did this. I know it's been a while. I didn't want to do it like the last 2 weeks because my mouth was hurting, but now it is significantly better and I'm feeling a lot better. So yeah, now I can read for a long period of time aloud. So I think we're on Dr. Seward's diary. So this is chapter 6, Dr. Seward's diary. We already read Mina Murray's journal. She's talking with the fisherman guys, and I think he was saying how kind of dumb the whatever's written on the tombstones was, because he's like, no, if you met the actual people, then it's not actually true to what it is. I was like, oh, okay. Anyways, yeah, we're in Dr. Seward's diary. I completely forgot who Dr. Seward was. Is he? I think he's one of the people that her friend Lucy, yeah, okay. Mina's friend Lucy had like 3 admirers and she liked Arthur, but she rejected the Texan and I think Dr. Seward. I think. There might have been another guy, but I'm pretty sure there's only 3. So 5th of June. I know it doesn't say of, but it just sounds trying to say 5 June. So 5th of June. Oh, in case anyone doesn't know, so the way this goes is this: I read the book aloud and I'll pause when I have a comment to say. But yeah, this ain't like no ASMR. I can't do ASMR. I don't have a mic for that, but I'm very loud in nature, so I don't think I can do that. So it's just me reading Dracula and giving my commentary. I did this one first because, you know, I'm a vampire. What else would I start with? I have other classics I am going to read because they are, you know, in the public domain, so I can legally read these aloud. But this could be like the first one. We're not even halfway. This is a very, very thick book. So I'm hoping our good old friend Jonathan survived, because then what else are we going to spend the remaining like 300 pages on, you know? So we'll see how it goes. Okay, the 5th of June. The case of Renfield grows more interesting the more I get to understand the man. He has certain qualities very largely developed: selfishness, secrecy, and purpose. Wow, that's a lot of points. Not a lot, but those are some really particular qualities for a guy. Okay. I wish I can get at what is the object of the latter. He seems to have some settled scheme of his own, but what it is I do not yet know. His redeeming quality is a love of animals, though indeed he has such curious turns in it that I sometimes imagine he is only abnormally cruel. Oh no, does he like hurt his animals? Is that what that means? Ooh. His pets are of odd sorts. Just now his hobby is catching flies. He has at present such a quantity that I had myself to expostulate. Letting y'all know I can't pronounce a lot of words. So I might say a lot of things wrong. Like that carriage, the caleche. I called it caleche because I don't know how it was called. Okay. To my astonishment, he did not break out into a fury, as I expected, but took the matter in simple seriousness. He thought for a moment, then said, "May I have 3 days? I shall clear them away." Of course, I said that would do. I must watch him. The 18th of June. He has turned his mind now to spiders. Oh, gross, no. Ew, I don't like spiders. I had to kill one yesterday. that was not fun. I didn't like that at all. I was like, ooh. Uh, turned mine out of spiders. Has got several very big fellows in a box. Chase-its! That's no. He keeps feeding them with his flies, and the number of the latter is becoming sensibly diminished, although he has used half his food in attracting more flies from outside to his room. The 1st of July. His spiders are now becoming as great a nuisance as his flies, and today I told him that he must get rid of them. He looked very sad at this, but I said that he must clear out some of them at all events. He cheerfully acquiesced in this, and I gave him the same time as before for a reduction. He disgusted me much while with him, for when a horrid blowfly, bloated with some carrion food, buzzed into the room, he caught it and held it exultantly for a few moments between his finger and thumb, and before I knew what he was going to do, put it in his mouth and ate. Oh my gosh, that's disgusting! Oh, no siree! Oh, yeah. Oh. Oh, sorry, just snatch the fly and you eat it, like, no, I'm good. No. I scolded him for it, but he argued quietly that it was very good and very wholesome, that it was life, strong life, and gave life to him. This sounds like the lecture that Legoshi got in Beastars when he just had to eat bugs instead of meat. Just saying. This gave me an idea, or a rudiment of one. I must watch how he gets rid of his spiders. He has evidently some deep problem in his mind, for he keeps a little notebook in which he has always jotted down something. Whole pages of it are filled with masses of figures, generally single numbers added up in batches, and then the totals added in batches again, as though they were focusing some account, as the auditors put it. 8th of July. There's a method in his madness, and the rudimentary idea in my mind is growing. It will be a whole idea soon, and then... Oh, unconscious cerebration? You will have to give the wall to your conscious brother. I kept away from my friend for a few days, so I might notice if there were any change. Things remained as they were, except that he had parted with some of his pets and got a new one. He managed to get a sparrow. This sounds really sussy. And has already partially tamed it. His means of taming is simple, for already the spiders have diminished. Those that do remain, however, are well fed, for he still brings in the flies by tempting them with his food. The 19th of July. We are progressing. My friend has now a whole colony of sparrows, and his flies and spiders are almost obliterated. When I came in, he ran to me and said he wanted to ask me a great favor. A very, very great favor. And as he spoke, he fawned on me like a dog. I asked him what it was, and he said with a sort of rapture in his voice, bearing. Why? Just why? Okay. Oh, I read ahead. I'm afraid. I love cats. My familiar is a cat, so I hope he doesn't hurt the cat. His voice bearing. A kitten, a nice little sleek, playful kitten that I can play with and teach and feed and feed and feed. I don't trust this man. Don't trust this man one bit. I was unprepared for this request, for I had noticed how his pets went on increasing in size and vivacity, but I did not care that his pretty family of tame sparrows should be wiped out in the same manner as the flies and spiders. So I said I would see about it, and asked him if he would not rather have a cat than a kitten. His eagerness betrayed him as he answered, "Oh yes, I would like a cat, and only ask for a kitten lest he should refuse me a cat. No one would refuse me a kitten, would they?" I shook my head and said that at present I feared it would not be possible, but that I would see about it. His face fell. I can see a warning of danger in it, for there was a sudden fierce sidelong look which meant killing. The man is an undeveloped homicidal maniac. I'm glad you noticed that, Mr. Seward. I shall test it with his present craving and see how it will work out, then I shall know more. 10 p.m. Okay, 10 p.m. same day. I visited him again and found him sitting in the corner brooding. When I came in, he threw himself on his knees before me and implored me to let him have a cat. As his salvation depended upon it. I was firm, however, and told him that he could not have it, whereupon he went without a word and sat down, gnawing his fingers in the corner where I had found him. I shall see him in the morning early. Okay. 20th of July. Visited Renfield very early before the attendant went his rounds, found him up and humming a tune. He was spreading out his sugar, which he had saved in the window, and is manifestingly beginning his fly catching again, and beginning it cheerfully with a good grace. I looked around for his birds, and not seeing them, asked him where they were. He replied without turning around that they had flown away. It's a little sus. Oh, there was a few feathers about the room, and on his pillow a drop of blood. I said nothing, but went and told the keeper to report to me if there was anything odd about him during the day. Oh my god. Okay. 11 a.m. Oh, I feel like this is worse than any time I read about Dracula and his gruesomeness. Like, I can't even handle Dracula climbing on the wall like a spider, you know? This is just disgusting. 11 a.m. The attendant has just been to see me to say that Renfield has been very sick and disgorged a whole lot of feathers. My belief is, doctor, he said that he has eaten his birds and that he just took and ate them raw. 11 p.m. I gave Renfield a strong opiate tonight, enough to make him even sleep, and took away his pocketbook to look at it. The thought has been buzzing about my brain lately and is complete and the theory proved. My hostile maniac is of a peculiar kind. I shall have to invent a new classification for him and call him a zoophagous, life-eating, life-eating, close parenthesis, maniac, and that he desires is to absorb in a cumulative way. He gave many flies to one spider, many spiders to one bird, then wanted a cat to eat the many birds. What would have been his later steps? It would have also been worthwhile to complete the experiment. I might be done if there were only a sufficient case. Men sneered at my vivisection, and yet look at its results today. Why not advance science in its most difficult and vital aspect, the knowledge of the brain? Had I even the secret of one such mind? Did I hold the key to the fancy of even one lunatic? I might advance my own branch of science to a pitch compared with which Burton Sanderson's physiology, or Ferrier's brain knowledge would be as nothing. If only there were a sufficient cause! I must not think too much of this, or I may be tempted. A good cause might turn to scale with me, for may not I too be of exceptional brain congenitally? Sir, you're going about this in a very wrong and horrible manner. Please don't pursue this. Oh. How well the man reasoned, lunatics always do within their own scope. I wonder at how many lives he values a man, or if only one. He has closed the account most accurately, and today began a new record. How many of us begin a new record with each day of our lives? To me it seems only yesterday that my whole life ended with my new hope, and that truly I began a new record. So it shall be until the great recorder sums me up and close my ledger account with a balance to profit or loss. Oh, Lucy, Lucy, I cannot be angry with you, nor can I be angry with my friend, whose happiness is yours. But I must only wait on hopeless and work. Work, work. If I could have as strong a cause as my poor mad friend there, a good unselfish cause to make me work, that would be indeed happiness. Okay, I'm glad Lucy turned you down. Yeah. Then again, I've only seen a telegram from Arthur, so I don't know anything about this guy. He could be even more sussy than Mr. Seward, for all we know. Mina Murray's Journal, 26th of July. I'm anxious, and it soothes me to express myself here. It is like whispering to oneself and listening at the same time. And there is also something about the shorthand symbols that makes it different from writing. I am unhappy about Lucy and Jonathan. I had not heard from Jonathan for some time, and I was very concerned. But yesterday Mr. Hawkins, who's always so kind, sent a letter for him. I had written asking him if he had heard, and he said that the enclosed had just been received. It's only a line dated from Castle Dracula and says that he is just starting for home. That is not like Jonathan. I do not understand it, and it makes me uneasy. Then, too, Lucy, although she is so well, has lately taken to her old habits of walking in her sleep. Her mother has spoken to me about it, and we have decided that I am to lock the door of our room every night. Mrs. Westenra has got an idea that sleepwalkers always go out on roofs of houses and along the edges of cliffs, then get suddenly awakened and fall over with a despairing cry that echoes all over the place. Really? Is that just a superstition, or is that like something that's been proven? Oh dear. Poor dear, she is naturally anxious about Lucy, and she tells me that her husband, Lucy's father, had the same habit, that he would get up in the night and dress himself and go out if he were not stopped. Lucy is to be married in the autumn, and she's already planning out her dresses and how her house is to be arranged. I sympathize with her, for I do the same. Only Jonathan and I in life will start in life in a very simple way, and shall have to try and make both ends meet. Mr. Homewood, he is the Arthur Homewood, only son of Lord Godalming, is coming up here very shortly, as soon as he can leave town, for his father is not very well, and I think dear Lucy is counting the moments till he comes. She wants to take him in the seat on the churchyard cliff and show him the beauty of Whitby. I dare say it is the waiting which disturbs her. She will be all right when he arrives. 27th of July. No news from Jonathan. I'm getting quite uneasy about him, though why should I do not know? But I do wish that he would write, if it were only a single line. Lucy walks more than ever, and each night I am awakened by her moving about the room. Fortunately, the weather is so hot that she cannot get cold, but still the anxiety and the perpetuality being awakened is beginning to tell on me. I'm getting nervous and wakeful myself. Thank God Lucy's health keeps up. Mr. Homewood has been suddenly called to ring to see his father, who has been taken seriously ill. Lucy frets at the postponement of seeing him, but it does not touch her looks. She is a trifle stouter, and her cheeks are a lovely rose pink. She has lost the anemic look which she had. I pray it will all last. The 3rd of August. Another week had gone, and no news from Jonathan, not even to Mr. Hawkins, from whom I have heard. Oh, I do hope he is not ill. Mina, we hope he's not dead. Okay, that's the first thing. He surely would have written. I look at the last letter of his, but somehow it does not satisfy me. It does not read like him, and yet it is his writing. There is no mistake of that. Lucy has not walked much in her sleep the last week, but there is an odd concentration about her which I do not understand. Even in her sleep, she seems to be watching me. She tries the door, and finding it locked, goes about the room searching for the key. August 6th of August. Another 3 days and no news. The suspense is getting dreadful. If only I knew where to write or to where to go, I should feel easier, but no one has heard a word of Jonathan since the last letter. I must only pray to God for patience. Lucy's more excitable than ever, but is otherwise well. Last night was very threatening, and the fishermen say that we are in for a storm. I must try to watch it and learn the weather signs. Today is a grey day, and the sun, as I write, is hidden in the thick clouds, high over Kettleness. Everything is grey, except the green grass, which seems like the emerald amongst it. Grey earthy rock, grey clouds, tinged with the sunburst at the far edge. Hang over the grey sea, into which the sand points stretch with grey figures. The sea is tumbling in over the shallows, and the sandy flats with a roar, muffled in the sea mist, drifting inland. The horizon is lost in a grey mist. All in vastness the clouds are piled up with giant rocks, and there is a brool over the sea that sounds like some presage of doom. Dark figures on the beach here and there, sometimes half shrouded in the mist, seem men like trees walking. The fishing boats are racing for home, and rise and dip in the ground, swell as they sweep into the harbor, bending to the scuppers. Here comes old Mr. Swales. He's making straight for me, and I can see, by the way he lifts his hat, that he wants to talk. I have been quite touched by the change in the poor old man. When he sat down beside me, he said in a very gentle way, "I want to say something to you, miss." I could see he was not at ease, so I took his poor old wrinkled hand in mine and asked him to speak fully. So he said, leaving his hand in mine, "I'm afraid, my dear, that I must have shocked you by all the wicked things I've been saying about the dead and such like for weeks past. But I didn't mean them. I want ye to remember that when I've gone, we odd folks that be daffled and with one foot abaft the crock-a-cool don't altogether like to think of it, and we don't want to feel scorched of it, and that's why I'm tooken to making light of it, so I'd cheer up on my own heart a bit, but Lord love ye, miss, I ain't afraid of dying not a bit. Only I don't want to die if I can help it. My time must be nigh at hand now, for I be odd, and 100 years is too much for any man to expect, and I'm so nigh that the odd man is already whetting his scythe. You see, I can't get out of the old habit of scaffing about it all at once. The chaff so wag as they do used to. Some day soon the angel of death will sound his trumpet for me, but don't ye do I'd agree to my dearie. For he said I was crying. If he should come this very night, I do not refuse to call his name, for life be after all only a waiting for something else than what we are doing, and the death we all that we can rightly depend on, content, for it's comin' to me, my dearie, and comin' quick. It may be comin' while we be lookin' and wonderin'. Maybe it's in the wind out there over the sea that's bringin' with it loss and wreck and sore distress and sad hearts. Look, look! He cried suddenly. There's something in the wind and the host bayonet beyond that sounds and looks and tastes and smells like death. It's in the air. I feel it comin'. Lord, make me answer cheerful when my call comes. He held up his arms devoutly and raised his hat. His mouth moved as though he were praying. After a few minutes' silence, he got up, shook his hands with me and blessed me, said goodbye and hobbled off. It all touched me and upset me very much. I was glad when the Coast Guard came along with his spyglass underneath his arm. He stopped to talk with me as he always does, but all the time he kept looking at the strange ship. I can't make her out, he said. She's a Russian by the look of her, but she's knocking about in the queerest way. She doesn't know her mind a bit. She seems to see the storm coming, but can't decide whether to run up north in the open or put it in here. Look there again. She steered mighty strangely, for she doesn't mind the hand on the wheel. Changes about with every puff of wind. We'll hear more of her before this time tomorrow. Oh, we're in chapter 7. Cutting from the Daily Graph, 8th of August, pasted in Mina Murray's journal. Okay. From a correspondent, Whitby. One of the greatest and suddenest storms on record has just been experienced here, with results both strange and unique. The weather had been somewhat sultry, but not to any degree uncommon in the month of August. Saturday evening was as fine as was ever known, and the great body of holiday-makers laid out yesterday for visits to Mulgrave Wood, Robin Hood's Bay, Rigmill, Runswick, Staith's, and the various ships in the neighborhood of Whitby. The steamers Emma and Scarborough made excursions along the coast, and there was an unusual amount of tripping both to and from Whitby. The day was unusually fine till the afternoon, and some of the gossips who frequent the East Cliff churchyard and from the commanding eminence watched the wide sweep of sea visible to the north and east, called attention to the sudden show of mares' tails high in the sky to the northwest. The wind was then blowing from the southwest in the mild degree which barometrical language is ranked number 2 light breeze. The Coast Guard on duty at once made a report, and one old fisherman who for more than half a century has kept watch on weather signs in the East Cliff foretold in an empathetic manner the coming of a sudden storm. The approach of the sunset was so very beautiful, so grand in its masses of splendidly colored clouds, that there was quite an assemblage on the walk along the cliff in the old churchyard to enjoy the beauty. Before the sun dipped below the black mass of Kettleness, standing boldly athwart the western sky, its downward way was marked by myriad clouds of every sunset color, flame, purple, pink, green, violet, and all the tints of gold, with here and there masses not large, but seemingly of absolute blackness in all sorts of shapes, as was outlined as colossal silhouettes. Hi, Benz. Good evening. Good evening, Mommy. I've been called Obasa and Onee-chan. Haven't been called Mommy, though. That's new. But hello, welcome. With here and there masses not large, but seemingly of absolute blackness, in all sorts of shapes, as well as outlined as colossal silhouettes. The experience was not lost on the painters, and doubtless some of the sketches of the prelude on the great storm will grace the R.A. and the R.I. Wells in May next. More than one captain made up his mind then and there that his cobble or his mule, as they termed the different classes of boats, would remain in the harbor till the storm has passed. The wind fell away entirely during the evening, and at midnight there was a dead calm, a sultry heat, and a prevailing intensity which, on the approach of thunder, affects persons of a sensitive nature. There were but few lights in sight at sea, for even the coasting steamers, which usually hug the shore so closely, kept well to seaward, and but few fishing boats were in sight. The only sail noticeable was a foreign schooner, with all its sails set, which was seemingly going westwards. The foolhardiness or ignorance of her officers was a prolific theme for comment which she remained in sight, and the efforts were made to signal her to reduce sail in face of her danger. Before the night shut down, she was seen with sails idly flapping as she gently rolled on the undulating swell of the sea. Oh, okay, I don't want to do... No, it's all good. Oh, okay, it's your... Oh, wait a minute. Hi, Catgun Gaming, welcome. This is your favorite chapter, number 7? Ooh, yeah, right now we're reading the paper article in Mina's journal. We still don't know if Jonathan's live. I'm assuming he is. This is barely chapter 9, page 91 out of 400 something, you know. So we'll see how it goes. As idled as a painted ship upon painted ocean. Shortly before 10 o'clock, the stillness of the air grew quite oppressive, and the silence was so marked that the bleating of a sheep inland or the barking of a dog in the town was distinctly heard, and the band on the pier, with its lively French air, was like a discord in the great harmony of nature's silence. A little after midnight came a strange sound from over the sea. A high overhead, the air began to carry a strange, faint, hollow booming. Then, without warning, the tempest broke, with a rapidity which at the time seemed incredible and even afterwards is impossible to realize. The whole aspect of nature at once became convulsed. The waves rose in growing fury, each overtopping its fellow, till in a very few minutes the lately glassy sea was like a roaring and devouring monster. White-crested waves beat madly on the level sands and rushed up the shelving cliffs. Others broke over the piers and with their spume swept the lanthorns of the lighthouses which rise from the end of either pier of Whitby Harbor. The wind roared like thunder and blew with such force that it was with difficulty that even strong men kept their feet, or clung with grim clasp to the iron stanchions. I think I said that right. It was found necessarily to keep the entire piers from the mass of onlookers, or else the fatalities of the night would have increased many-fold. To add to the difficulties and dangers of the time, masses of sea fog came drifting inland. White, wet clouds which swept by... Ooh, alliteration. I love alliteration. Swept by in ghostly fashion, so dank and damp and cold that it needed but a little effort of imagination to think that the spirits of those lost at sea were touching their living brethren with the clammy hands of death, and many a one shuddered at the wreaths of sea mist swept by. At the times the mist cleared, and the sea from some distance could be seen in the glare of the lightning, which came thick and fast, followed by such sudden peals of thunder that the whole sky overhead seemed trembling under the shock of the footsteps of the storm. Some of the scenes thus revealed were of immeasurable grandeur and absorbing interest. The sea, running mountains high, threw skywards with each wave all mighty masses of white foam which the tempest seemed to snatch at and whirl away into space. Here and there a fishing boat with a rag of sail running madly for shelter before the blast, now and again the white sails of storm-tossed seabird. On the summit of these cliffs the new searchlight was ready for experiment, but had not yet been tried. The officers in charge of it got it into working order, and in the pauses of inrushing the mist swept with the surface of the sea. Oh, God. Oh, I need my water. Okay. How long is this newspaper clipping? Jesus. Oh, God. It's like something pokey in my throat. Lovey, how you been? I'm doing good. How are you? How are you? How are y'all doing today? That is a very long Daily Graph. Why do you have such a long article? Jesus, is a very long article. Okay. Once or twice its service was most effective as when a fishing boat with gunwale underwater rushed into the harbor, able by the guidance. My flower really paints a picture. Hello. Hi, Cheeseball. Welcome. It is very flowery. I'm getting some of it. Some of it, I'm imagining. But there's a lot of words that I wouldn't normally use in my usual vocabulary. By the guidance of the sheltering light, to avoid the danger of dashing against the piers. As each boat achieved the safety of the port, there was a shout of joy from the mass of people on the shore. A shout which for a moment seemed to cleave the gale and was then swept away in its rush. Before long, the searchlight discovered some distance away a schooner in which all sails set, apparently the same vessel which had been noticed early in the evening. The wind had by this time backed to the east, and there was a shudder amongst the watchers on the cliff as they realized the terrible danger in which she now was. Between her and the port lay a great flat reef on which so many good ships have from time to time suffered, and with the wind blowing from its present quarter, it would be quite impossible she should fetch the entrance of the harbor. It was now nearly the hour of high tide, but the waves were so great that in their throes Again, sorry if I say any words wrong. A lot of words I don't normally use. So I'm probably gonna say a lot of these wrong. Shawls of the shore were almost visible, and the schooner, with all sail set, was rushing with such speed that, in the words of one old salt, she must fetch up somewhere if it was only in hell. Oof. Oof. Then came another rush of sea fog, greater than hitherto. Hitherto, a mass of dank mist which seemed to close on all things like grey pall, and left available to men only the organ of hearing, for the roar of the tempest and the crash of the thunder and the booming of the mighty bellows came through the damp oblivion even louder than before. The rays of searchlight were kept fixed on the harbor mouth across the east pier, where the shock was expected, and the men waited breathlessly. The wind suddenly shifted to the northeast, and the remnant of the sea fog melted in the blast. And then, Miriabile dictu? How you say it? I probably said that wrong. I just woke up. I can't comprehend this. It's okay. It's all good. Between the pier, it's just a report on like the really horrible storm, and I think there's a Russian ship out there that they're trying to guide to the harbor, but it doesn't seem they might make it. We'll see. Between the piers, leaping from wave to wave as it rushed at headlong speed, swept the strange schooner before the blast with all sail set and gained the safety of the harbor. The searchlight followed her, and a shudder ran through all who saw her, for lashed to the helm was a corpse, with the drooping head which sung horribly to and fro at each motion of the ship. No other form could be seen on deck at all. A great awe came on all as they realized that the ship, as by a miracle, had found the harbor, unsteered save by the hand of a dead man. Dun dun dun! However, all took place more quickly than it takes to write these words. The schooner paused not, but rushing across the harbor, pitched herself on the accumulation of sand and gravel washed by many tides and many storms into the southeast corner of the pier, jutting under the east cliff, known locally as Tate Hill Pier. There was, of course, a considerable concussion at the vessel. It drove up the sand heap. Every spar, rope, and stay was strained, and some of the top hamper came crashing down. Excuse me. For strangest of all, the very instant the shore was touched, an immense dog sprang up on deck from below as it shot up by the concussion and running forward, jumping from the bow into the sand, making straight for the steep cliff where the churchyard hangs over the laneway to the east pier so steeply that some of the flat tombstones, thrusteens, or through stones, as they call them in the Whitby vernacular. Actually, project over where the sustaining cliff has fallen away it disappeared in the darkness, which seemed intensified just beyond the focus of the searchlight. It so happened that there was no one at the moment on Tate Hill Pier, as all those whose houses are in close proximity were either in bed or were out on the heights above. Thus, the Coast Guard on duty on the east side of the harbor, who at once ran over to the little pier, was the first to climb on board. The men working the searchlight, after scouring the entrance of the harbor without seeing anything, then turned the light on the derelict and kept it there. The Coast Guard ran aft, and when he came beside the wheel, bent over to examine it and recoiled at once as though under some sudden emotion. It seemed to pique the general curiosity, and quite a number of people began to run. It's a good way round from the West Cliff by drawbridge to the Tate Hill Pier, but your correspondent is a fairly good runner and came well ahead of the crowd. Wait, is he this poor heard he was getting paid by the word and tried to beg. Oh my gosh! That's hilarious. Good for this guy again. No wonder it's so freaking long. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's right here. It says, but you're a correspondent, a fairly good runner. He's praising himself. He's like, guys, I was in track. I'm good at this. Oh dear. When I arrived, however, I found already summoned on the piers a crowd whom the Coast Guard and police refused to allow to come on board by the courtesy of the chief boatman. I was, as your correspondent, permitted to climb on deck. It was one of the small group who saw the dead seaman, which actually lashed to the wheel. It was no wonder the Coast Guard was surprised, or even awed, for not often such a sight had been seen. The man was simply fastened by his hands, tied one over the other to a spoke of the wheel. To a spoke of the wheel. Between the inner hand and the wood was a crucifix, a set of beads on which was fastened. I hope this isn't Jonathan. Oh no, please don't be Jonathan. I want him to live. He was a dum-dum, but he was our dum-dum. You know, chat? Okay. Beads on which was fastened being around both wrists and wheel, and all kept fast by the binding cords. The poor fellow may have been seated at one time, but the flapping and buffeting of the sails had worked through the rudder of the wheel, and dragged him to and fro, so that the cords of which he was tied had cut the flesh to the Oh! Accurate note was made of the state of things, and a doctor, Surgeon J.M. Caffin, of 33, East Elliot Place, who came immediately after me, declared after making examination that they must have been dead for quite 2 days. In his pocket was a bottle, carefully corked, empty save for a little roll of paper, which proved to be the addendum to the log. The Coast Guard said the man must have tied up his hand, fastening the knots with his teeth. The fact that a Coast Guard was the first on board may save some compilations later on in the Admiralty Court, for the Coast Guards cannot claim to salvage, which is the right of the first civilian entering on a derelict. Already, however, the legal tongues are wagging, and one young law student is loudly asserting that the rights of the owner are already completed sacrificed, his property being held in contravention of the statutes of mortmain, since the tiller and emblemship, if not proof of delegated possession, is held in a dead hand. It is easy to say that the dead steersman has been reverently removed from the place where he held his honorable watch and ward till death, as steadfast as noble as the young of Casabianca, and placed in the mortuary to wait inquest. That made no freaking sense. What? Is it because they couldn't identify him that the property belongs to the city? Is that what they meant? I'm so confused. Whatever. Already the sudden storm is passing, and its fierceness is abating. The crowds are scattering homewards, and the sky is beginning to redden over the Yorkshire wolds. I shall send in time for your next issue further details of the derelict ship which found her way to the miraculously into the harbor in the storm. Oh. Wait. Are we still on his newspaper article, or is Mina finally talking? No, we're still doing the Daily Graph. Okay. 9th of August. The sequel to The Strange Arrival of the Derelict. I'm probably saying this wrong. Feel free to correct me if I'm saying derelict wrong. And the storm last night is almost more startling than the thing itself. It turns out the schooner is a Russian from Varna, and it's called the Demeter. She is almost entirely in the ballast of silver sand, with only a small amount of cargo, a number of great wooden boxes filled with mold. Its cargo is consigned to a would-be solicitor, Mr. S.F. Billington of 7 the Crescent, who this morning went aboard and took formal possession of the goods consigned to him. The Russian consul, too, accusing for the charter party, took formal possession of the ship and paid all harbor dues, etc. Nothing is talked about here today except the strange coincidence the officials of the Board of Trade had been most exacting in seeing that every compliance had been made with existing regulations. As the matter is to be a 9-day wonder, they were evidently determined that there shall be no cause after complaint. A good deal of interest was abroad concerning the dog, which landed when the ship struck, and more than a few of the members of SPCA, which is very strong in Whitby, had tried to befriend the animal. To the general disappointment, however, it was not to be found. It seems to have disappeared entirely from the town. And maybe that it was frightened and made its way onto the moors, where it was still hiding in terror. There are some who look with dread on such a possibility, lest later on it should in itself become a danger, for it is evidently a fierce brute. Early this morning, a large dog, half-bred mastiff, belonging to a coal merchant close to Tate Hill Pier, was found dead. No! Wait! I've seen those dogs. Those are ginormous dogs. Oh man, did Mr. Hawkins bring a werewolf? Bet you he brought a werewolf. That is Mr. Not Hawkins. Jonathan Harker, yes. If it is Harker, and he brought a werewolf, that's not good. For one, he's dead. Second of all, he's a werewolf. It ate a mastiff. Like, come on. Those things are huge. Look at what a mastiff is. Look at a mastiff. They're like a giant bear. I wanted one at some point. And then, yeah, no, it didn't work out. I figured, like, you know what? Yeah, they're pretty giant. I know won't kill me, but like they're pretty ginormous and very fluffy. Like at least Lena cleans up her fur, like so I don't have to worry about her fur. Okay. Oh, it was found down the roadway opposite its master's yard. It had been fighting and manifestly had a savage opponent for its its throat was torn away and its belly slit open as if it was a savage claw. Holy cannoli. Okay. Later. By the kindness of the Board of Trade Inspector, I have been permitted to look over the logbook of the Demeter, which was in order up within 3 days, but contained nothing of special interest except as the facts of missing men. The greatest interest, however, is with regard to the paper found in the bottle, which was today produced at the inquest, and more strange narrative than the two between them, and folded had not been my lot to come across. If there is no motive for concealment, I am permitted to use them, and accordingly send you a rescript, simply omitting technical details of seamanship and the supercargo. It almost seems as though the captain had been seized with some kind of mania before he had got well into blue water, and that this had developed persistently throughout the voyage. Of course, my statement must be taken cum grano, since I am writing from the dictation of a clerk of the Russian consul who kindly translated for me, time being short. Okay. Log of Demeter, written 18th of June, things so strange happening that I shall keep accurate note henceforth till we land. Don't know who this is, but okay. On 6th of July, we finished taking in cargo, silver sand, and boxes of earth. At noon set sail. East wind, fresh, crew 5 hands, 2 mates, cook, and myself, Capitan. Ha 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 ha. On the 11th of July, at dawn entered Bosphorus, boarded by Turkish customs officers. Bakshish. Just kidding. Can't do that as good shoe. All correct. Underway at 4 p.m. 12th of July. Through the Dardanelles, more customs officers and flagboat of guarding squadron. Bakshish again. Work of the officers thorough, but quick. Want us off soon. At dark, pass into the archipelago. On 13th of July. Pass Cape Matapan. Crew dissatisfied about something. Seemed scared, but would not speak out. Ha. Okay. On 14th of July. Was somewhat anxious about crew. Men all steady fellows who sailed with me before. Mate could not make out what was wrong. They only told him there was something and crossed themselves. Okay. Mate lost temper with one of them that day and struck him. Expected fierce quarrel, but all was quiet. Okay. So someone got punched. On 16th of July, mate reported in the morning that one of the crew, Petrofisky, was missing. Unless that was Dracula. I don't think Dracula died, though. Unless Dracula disguised himself as a dog, which I don't see why he would. I don't know. I'm very confused. Cannot account for it. Took labored watch 8 bells last night. It was relieved by Abramoff, but did not go to bunk. Okay. Men more downcast than ever. All said they expected something of the kind, but would not say more than there was something aboard. Is it Dracula? Mate getting very impatient with them. Feared some trouble ahead. On 17th July, yesterday one of the men, Ulgarin, came to my cabin in an awestruck way, confided to me that he thought there was a strange man aboard the ship. Said that in his watch he had been sheltering behind the deck house, as there was a rainstorm, when he saw a tall, thin man who was not like any of the crew come up the companionway and go along the deck forward and disappear. He followed cautiously, but when he got to the bows found no one, and the hatchways were all closed. He was in a panic of superstitious fear, and I am afraid the panic may spread. To allay it, I shall today search the entire ship carefully from stem to stern, my bad. Later in the day, I got together the whole crew and told them, as they evidently thought there was someone on the ship, we would search for them from stem to stern. First mate, angry, said it was folly, and to yield to such foolish ideas would demoralize the men. Said he would engage to keep them out of trouble with a spike. I let him take the helm, while the rest began thorough search, all keeping abreast with lanterns. We left no corner unsearched, as there was only the big wooden boxes. There were no odd corners where a man could hide. Men much relieved when search over and went back to work cheerfully. First mate scowled, but said nothing. 22nd of July. Rough weather last 3 days, and all hands busy with sails. No time to be frightened. Men seem to have forgotten their dead. Made cheerful again, and all on good terms. Praise men for work in bad weather. Past Gibraltar, and out through straits. All well. Awesome. 24th of July. There seemed some doom over the ship. Already a shorthand and entering the Bay of Biscay with wild weather ahead, and yet last night another man lost. Disappeared. Like the first, he came off his watch and was not seen again. Men, all in a panic of fear, sent a round robin asking to have double watch. As they seemed to be alone, mate violent. Fear there will be some trouble, as either he or the men will do some violence. 28th of July. 4 days in hell, knocking about in a sort of maelstrom, and the wind a tempest. No sleep for anyone. Men all worn out, hardly know how to set a watch, since no one fit to go on. Second mate volunteered to steer and watch, and let men snatch a few hours' sleep. Wind a-basting, seas still terrific, but feel them less as ship is steadier. 29th of July. Another tragedy. Had single watch tonight, and as crew too tired to double. When morning watch came on deck, could find no one except steersman. Raised outcry, and all came on deck. Though searched but no one found, are now without second mate and crew in panic. Mate and I agreed to go armed henceforth and wait for any sign of cause. 30th of July. Last night, rejoiced we are nearing England, weather fine, all sails set. Retired, worn out, slept soundly, awakened by mate telling me that both men on watch and steersman missing. Only self and mate and 2 hands left to work ship. 4 people. Oh dear. Is mate the dog? No, because then dog can't carry a weapon. That was a dumb question, I'm sorry. 1st of August, 2 days of fog, and our sails sighted. Had hoped then the English Channel would be able to signal for help to get in somewhere. Not having power to work sails, have to run before wind, dare not lower, as could not raise them again. We seem to be drifting to some terrible doom. Mate now more demoralized than either of them. His stronger nature seemed to have worked inwardly against him. Men are beyond fear, working solidly and patiently with minds made up to worst. They are Russian he Romanian. Oh, okay. 2nd of August, midnight. Woke up for a few minutes' sleep by hearing a cry, seemingly outside my port. Could see nothing in fog, rushed on deck, and then ran against mate. Tells me he heard cry and ran, but no sign of man on watch. 1 more gone. Lord help us. Mate says we must be past Straits of Dover, as in a moment of fog lifting we saw North Foreland just as he heard the man cry out. So we are now off in the North Sea, and only God can guide us in the fog, which seems to move us. With us, the God seems to have deserted us. Oh dear, this entry is very long. 3rd of June. At midnight, I went to relieve the man at the wheel, but when I got it, I found no one there. The wind was steady, and as we ran before it, there was no yawning. I dare not leave it, so shouted for the mate. After a few seconds, he rushed up on deck in his flannels. He looked wide-eyed and haggard, and he greatly feared his reason has given away. He came close to me and whispered hoarsely with his mouth to my ear, as though fearing the very air might hear. It is here. I know it now. On the watch last night, I saw it, like a man, tall and thin, ghastly pale. It was in the bows and looks out. I crept behind it and gave him my knife, but the knife went through it, empty as the air. As he spoke, he took the knife and drew it savagely into space. Then he went on, but it is here, and I'll find it. It is the hold, that perhaps in one of those boxes. I'll unscrew them one by one and see. You work the helm. And with a warning look and his finger on his lip, he went below. Yeah, he's not gonna survive. Okay, so it's not Jonathan. It's probably the captain then. That's good. That's good. I hope Jonathan's alive. There's a spring up of a choppy wind, and I cannot leave the helm. I saw him come out on deck again with a cool chest and a lantern and go down the forward hatchway. He is mad, stark, raving mad. It's no use my trying to stop him. He can't hurt those big boxes. They're invoiced as clay, and to pull them about is as harmless a thing as he can do. So here I stay and mind the helm and write these notes. I can only trust in God and wait till the fog clears. Then, if I can't steer to any harbor with the wind that it is, I shall cut down the sails and lie by and signal for help. It is nearly all over now, just as I was beginning to hope that the mate would come out calmer, for I heard him knocking away at something in the hold, and work is good for him. There came up the hatchway a sudden startled scream, which made my blood run cold, and up the deck he came, as if shot from a gun, a raging madman with his eyes rolling and his face convulsed with fear. Save me, he cried, and then looked around on the blanket of fog. His horror turned to despair. In a steady voice he said, "You had better come too, Captain, for it is too late. He is there. I know the secret now. The sea will save me from him, and it is all that is left." Oh. Before I could say a word or more, Ford seized him. He sprang on the bulwark and deliberately threw himself into the sea. Well, drowning or eaten alive? I guess drowning. Huh. Oh dear, this poor man. Oh geez. I wonder if some of the other men did that too. Like, I'm sure Dracula ate most of them, but I'm pretty sure some of them were like, yeah, no, and they jumped. Oh man, like the captain's all alone now. He's like, well, crap, what do I do? I suppose I know the secret too now. It was this madman who had got rid of the men one by one, and now he has followed them himself. Wait, what? He thinks he killed him? Dude, I don't think he did, but okay. God help me, how am I to account for all these horrors when I get to port? When I get to port. When that will ever be? Will that ever be? Blah, blah. 4th of August. Still fog, which the sunrise cannot pierce. I know there is a sunrise because I am a sailor, but why else I know not. I dare not go below, I dare not leave the helm so here all night. I stayed in the dimness of night. I saw it. Him! God forgive me, but the mate was right to jump overboard. It was better to die like a man, to die like a sailor in blue water. No man can object. But I am captain, I must not leave my ship. But I shall baffle this fiend or monster, for I shall tie my hands to the wheel when my strength begins to fail, and along with them I shall tie that which it dare not touch. And then come good wind or foul, I shall save my soul and my honor as captain. I am growing weaker and the night is coming on. If he can look at me in the face again, I may not have time to act. If we are wrecked, and mayhap this bottle may be found, and those who find it may understand if not. Well, and all men shall know that I have been true to my trust. God and the Blessed Virgin, the saints, help a poor ignorant soul trying to do his duty. Of course, the verdict was an open one. There is no evidence to adduce, and whether or not the man himself committed the murders, there's none to say. The folk here hold almost universally that the captain is simply a hero, and he is to be given a public funeral. Already is arranged that his body is to be taken with a train of boats up to the Esk for a peace, and then brought back to Tate Hill Pier. Okay, so to his duty. That was the end of the bottle. Now we're continuing the daily graph. Up the Abbey steps, for he is to be buried in the courtyard on the cliff. The owners of more than 100 boats have already given in their names as wishing to follow him to the grave. No traces have been found of the great dog, at which there is much mourning, for which public opinion in the present state he would, I believe, be adopted by the town. Tomorrow we'll see the funeral, and so we'll end this one more mystery of the sea. Alright, we're back with Miss Mina. Mina Murray's journal. 8th of August. Lucy was very restless all night, and I too could not sleep. The storm was fearful, and as it boomed loudly among the chimney pots, it made me shudder. Then a sharp puff came in and seemed to be like a distant gun. Strangely enough, Lucy did not wake, but she got up twice and dressed herself. Fortunately, each time I woke in time and managed to undress her without waking her and got her back to bed. It is a very strange thing, this sleepwalking, for as hers her will is thwarted in any physical way, her intention, if there be any, disappears and she yields herself almost exactly to a routine of her life. Early in the morning, we both got up and went down to the harbor to see if anything had happened the night. There were few people about, and although the sun was bright and the air clear and fresh, the big, grim-looking waves that seemed dark themselves began because the foam that topped them was like snow, forced themselves into the narrow mouth of the harbor, like a bullying man going through a crowd. Somehow I felt glad that Jonathan was not on the sea last night, but on land. But oh, is he on land or sea? Where is he and how? I'm getting fearfully anxious about him. If I only knew what to do and could do anything? 10th of August. The funeral of the poor sea captain today was most touching. Every boat in the harbor seemed to be there, and the coffin was carried by captains all the way from Tate Hill Pier up to the churchyard. Lucy came with me, and we went early to our old seat. Whilst the cortege of boats went up the river to viaduct and to the viaduct and came down again. We had a lovely view and saw the procession nearly all the way. The poor fellow was laid to rest quite near our seat, so that we stood on it when the time came and saw everything. Poor Lucy seemed much upset. She was restless and uneasy all the time. I cannot but think that her dreaming at night is telling on her. She is quite odd in one thing. She will not admit to me there is any cause for restlessness, or, if there be, she does not understand it herself. There is an additional cause, and that poor Mr. Swales was found dead this morning on our seat. His neck been Oh! Oh! Dear! Oh! Mr. Swales? Is that the sea captain? Did Dracula kill him? I was jacked up. I'm so sorry, Mr. Swales. Had evidently, as the doctor said, fallen back in the scene some sort of fright, for there was a look of fear and horror on his face when the men said made them shudder. Poor dear old man! Perhaps I had seen death with his dying eyes. Lucy is so sweet and sensitive that she feels influences more acutely than other people do. Just now she is quite upset by a little thing which I did not much heed, but I am myself very fond of animals. One of the men who came up to her often to look for the boats was followed by his dog. The dog is always with him. They are both quiet persons, and I never saw the man angry nor hear the dog bark. During the service the dog would not come up to its master, who was on the seat with us, but kept a few yards off, barking and howling. That dog knows what's up. That dog knows very much what's up. Listen to your pets, people. They know. They just know, okay? Its master spoke to it gently, and then harshly, and then angrily, but it would neither come nor cease to make a sound. It was a sort of fury with its eyes savage and all tear bristling out like a cat's tail when puss is on the warpath. Finally the man too got angry, jumped down and kicked the dog, and then it took it by the scruff of the neck and half dragged and half threw it on the tombstone to which the seat is fixed. The moment it touched the stone, the poor thing became quiet and fell all into a tremble. It did not try to get away, but crouched down, quivering and cowering, and was in such a pitiable state of terror that I tried, though without effect, to comfort it. Lucy was full of pity too, but she did not attempt to touch the dog, but it looked as if in an agonized sort of way. I greatly fear that she is oft too supersensitive, a nature to go through the world without trouble. She'll be dreaming of this tonight, I am sure. The whole agglomeration of things. The ship steered into port by a dead man, his attitude tied to the wheel with the crucifix and beads, the touching funeral, the dog now fierce and now in terror, will all afford material for her dreams. I think it will be the best for her to go to bed, tired out physically, so I shall take her for a long walk by the cliffs of Robin Hood's Bay and back. She ought not to have much inclination for sleepwalking then. I need water. On chapter 8. Okay. Mina Murray's journal. Same day, 11 o'clock p.m. Oh, but I am tired. If it were not that I had made my journal a duty, I should not open it tonight. We had a lovely walk. Lucy, after a while, was in a gay spirits, owing, I think, to some dear crows who came nosing towards us in a field close to the lighthouse, crying the wits out of us. I believe we forgot everything except, of course, personal fears, and it seemed to wipe the slate clean and give us a fresh start. We had a capital severe tea at Robin Hood's Bay in a sweet little old-fashioned inn, with a bow wind right over the seaward-covered rocks of the Strand. I believe we should have shocked the new woman with our appetites. Men are more tolerant, bless them. Then we walked home with some, or rather many, stoppages to rest, and with our hearts full of constant dread of wild bulls. Lucy was really tired, and we intended to creep off to bed as soon as we could. The young curate came, however, and Mrs. Westenra asked us to stay for supper. Lucy and I had both a fight for it with the dusty miller. I know it was a hard fight on my part, and I am quite heroic. I think that some day the bishops must get together and see about breeding up a new class of curates, who don't take supper, no matter how they may be pressed to, and who will know when girls are tired. She's like, yeah, this guy's stayed, and we cannot go to sleep. And I was like, oh. Lucy is asleep and breathing softly. She has more color in her cheeks than usual, and looks oh so sweet. Mr. Holmwood fell in love with her, seeing her only in the drawing room. I wonder what he would say if he saw her now. So the new woman writer. will someday star an idea that men and women should be allowed to see each other asleep before proposing or accepting. But I suppose the new woman won't condescend in future to accept. She will do the proposing herself, and a nice job she will make of it too. There's some consolation in that. I'm so happy tonight because dear Lucy seems better. I really believe she has turned the corner and that we are over her troubles of dreaming. I should be happy if I only knew of Jonathan. God bless and keep him. 11th of August, 3 a.m. Diary again. No sleep now. I may as well write. I'm too agitated to sleep. We had such an adventure, such an agonizing experience. I fell asleep and I had closed my diary. Suddenly I became broad awake and sat up, with a horrible sense of fear upon me, and of some feeling of emptiness around me. The room was dark, so I could not see Lucy's bed. I stole across and felt for her. The bed was empty. I lit a match and found that she was not in the room. The door was shut but not locked, as I had left it. I feared to wake her mother, who has been more than usually ill lately, so threw on some clothes and got ready to go look for her. As I was leaving the room, it struck me that the clothes she wore might have given me some clue to her dreaming intention. Dressing gown would meet house, dress outside, dressing gown and dress are both in their places. Thank God, I said to myself. She cannot be far. She is only in her nightdress. I ran downstairs and looked in the sitting room. Not there, and I looked in all the other open rooms of the house, with an ever-growing fear chilling my heart. Finally I came to the hall door and found it open. It was not wide open, but the catch of the lock had not caught. The people of the house were careful to lock the door every night, so I fear that Lucy must have gone as she was. There was no time to think of what might happen. Vague, overmastering fear obscured all details. I took a great, heavy shawl and ran out. The clock was striking 1, and I was in the crescent, and there was not a soul in sight. I ran along the north terrace, but could not see no sign of the white figure which I expected. At the edge of the west cliff above the pier, I looked across the harbor to the east cliff, in hope or fear, I don't know which, seeing Lucy in our favorite seat. There's a bright full moon with heavy black driving clouds, which threw the whole scene into a fleeting diorama of light and shade as they sailed across. For a moment or two I could see nothing, as the shadow of a cloud obscured St. Mary's Church and all around it. And as the cloud passed I could see the ruins of the abbey coming into view, and as the edge of a narrow band of light, as sharp as sword cut, moved along. The church and the churchyard became gradually visible. Whatever my expectation was, I was not disappointed, for there on our favorite seat the silver light of the moon struck a half-reclining figure, snowy white. Only the cloud was too quick for me to see much, for shadow shut down light almost immediately. It seemed to me as though something dark stood behind the seat where the white figure shone and bent over it. What it was, whether man or beast, I could not tell. I did not wait to catch another glance, and flew down the steep steps of the pier and along by the fish market to the bridge, which was the only way to reach each cliff. The town seemed as dead, for not a soul did I see. I rejoiced that it was so, for I wanted no witness for poor Lucy's condition. The time in the distance seemed endless, and my knees trembled and my breath came labored as I toiled up the steps of the abbey. I must have gone fast, and yet it seemed to me as if my feet were weighted with lead, and as though every joint of my body were rusty. When I got almost to the top, I could see the seat and the white figure, for I was now close to distinguish, even though through the spells of shadow there was undoubtedly something long and black bending over the half-reclining figure. I called in fright, "Lucy! Lucy!" and something raised a head, and from where I was I could see a white face and red gleaming eyes. Lucy did not answer, and I ran on the entrance of the churchyard. As I entered, the church was between me and the seat, and for a minute or so I lost sight of her. When I came to view again, the cloud passed, and the moonlight shook brilliantly. I could see Lucy half reclining, with her head lying over the back of the seat. She was quite alone. There was not a sign of any living thing about. When I bent over, I could see she was still asleep. Her lips were parted, and she was breathing. Not softly as usual with her, but long, heavy gasps, as though striving to keep her lungs full at every breath. As I came close, she put up her hand in her sleep and pulled the collar of her nightdress close around her throat. When she did so, there might be a little shudder through her, as though she felt the cold. I swung the warm shawl over and drew the edges tight around her neck, for I dreaded lest she should get some dreadfully chill from the night air. Unclad as she was, I feared her awake all at once, so in order to have my hands free that I might help her, I fastened the shawl at her throat with a big safety pin, but I must have been clumsy in my anxiety, and pricked her with it. For by and by, when her breathing became quiet, she put her hand on her throat again and moaned. When I had her carefully wrapped up, I put my shoes on her feet and began very gently to wake her. At first she did not respond, because she became more and more uneasy in her sleep, moaning and sighing occasionally. At last, as time passing fast, and for many other reasons, I wished to get her home at once. I shook her more forcibly till finally she opened her eyes and awoke. She did not seem surprised to see me, as of course she did not realize how wanted she was. Lucy always wakes prettily, even at such a time when her body must have been chilled with cold, and her mind somewhat appalled at waking unclad in a churchyard at night. She did not lose her grace. She trembled a little and clung to me. When I told her to come out at once with me home, she rose without a word, the obedience of a child. As we passed along, the gravel hurt my feet, and Lucy noticed me wince. She stopped and wanted to insist upon taking my shoes, but I would not. However, when we got to the pathway outside the churchyard, there was a puddle of water remaining from the storm. I dabbed my feet with mud, using each foot in turn on the other, so that when we went home, no one in case we should meet anyone should notice my bare feet. Fortune favored us, and we got home without meeting a soul. Once we saw a man who seemed to not quite sober passing along a stream from us. We hid in a door till he had disappeared, up an opening such as there are here, steeple closes, or wines, as they call them in Scotland. My heart beat so loudly all the time that sometimes I thought I should faint. I was filled with anxiety about Lucy, not only for her health, lest she should suffer from the exposure, but her reputation in case the story should get wind. When we got in and had washed our feet and had said a prayer of thankfulness together, I tucked her into bed. Before falling asleep, she asked, even implored me not to say a word to anyone, even her mother, about her sleepwalking adventure. I hesitated at first to promise, but on thinking of the state of her mother's health and how the knowledge of such a thing would fret her, and thinking, too, how such a story might become distorted, nay, infallibly would, in case it should leak out, I thought it wiser to do so. I hope I did right. I have locked the door, and the key is tied to my wrist, so perhaps I shall not be again disturbed. Lucy is sleeping soundly. The reflex of dawn is high and far over the sea. Wow. So Dracula tried to kill Lucy. I feel so bad. Mina already lost Jonathan. I really don't want her to like lose her best friend. Like that would just suck, honestly. Same day, noon. All goes well. Lucy slept till I woke her, and seemed not to have even changed her side. The adventure of the night does not seem to have harmed her. On the contrary, it has benefited her. She looks better this morning than she had done for weeks. I was sorry to notice that my clumsiness with the safety pin hurt her. Indeed, it might have been serious, for the skin of her throat was pierced. I must have pinched up a piece of loose skin and had transfixed it, for there were two little red points with pinpricks, and on the band of her nightdress was a drop of blood. When I apologized and was concerned about it, she laughed and petted me and said she did not even feel it. Fortunately, I cannot leave a scar, as it is so tiny. What? I don't think my fangs are that thin either, unless it's healing. What? Dracula must have like really skinny things. Mina really gets put through a lot. She tried to live her life and earn her under his drama. I know! She like lost her fiance. His boss isn't telling her anything. Lucy had like 3 love confessions. She went with one guy. Now she has to take care of Lucy. She lost her fisherman friend. Like, damn, this girl is going through way too much. But you're right. Poor Mina. She's going through a lot. She is indeed. Let's see. But yeah, my fangs, I mean, they're not like super thick, but they're also not as skinny as like pinpricks, you know? Like Dracula must have like really skinny teeth. Wow. Sunday night. We passed a happy day. The air was clear and the sun bright. There was a cool breeze. We took our lunch at Mulgrave Woods. Mrs. Westenra driving by the road, and Lucy and I walking by the cliff path, joining her at the gate. I felt a little sad myself, for I could not but feel how absolutely happy it would have been had Jonathan been with me. But there, I must only be patient. In the evening, we strolled in the casino terrace and heard some good music by Spoffer and Mackenzie, and went to bed early. Lucy seems more restful than she has been for some time, and fell asleep at once. I shall lock the door and secure the key the same as before, though I do not expect any trouble tonight. Oh, man, I just read ahead. I'm sorry. 12th of August. My expectations were wrong, for twice during the night I was awakened by Lucy trying to get out. She seemed even in her sleep to be a little impatient at finding the door shut, and even went back to bed under sort of protest. I woke up with the dawn and heard the birds chirping outside the window. Lucy woke too, and I was glad to see, as even better than on the previous morning. Or her old gaiety of manner seemed to have come back, and she came and snuggled in beside me, and told me all about Arthur. I told her how anxious I was about Jonathan, and then she tried to comfort me. Well, she succeeded somewhat, for though sympathy can't alter facts, it can help to make them more bearable. 20th of August. Another quiet day, and to bed with the key on my wrist as before. Again I woke in the night and found Lucy sitting up in bed, still asleep, pointing to the window. I got up quietly and pulling aside the blind looked out. It was brilliant moonlight, and the soft effect of the light over the sea and sky merged together in one great silent mystery. It is beautiful beyond words. Between me and the moonlight fitted a great bat, coming and going in great whirling circles. Once or twice it came quite close, but I was, I suppose, frightened at seeing me, and flitted away across the harbor towards the abbey. When I came back from the window, Lucy had lain down again and was sleeping peacefully. She did not stir again all night. Okay, fun fact. I don't think I mentioned this in my debut. I probably should have. I actually used to sleepwalk, believe it or not. um, oh man, I didn't know I did. I didn't know until Lena told me. She asked me what I wanted last night, and I asked her what. And she said, yeah, you came to my room, and you're like looking at me, and I was really confused. I don't remember waking up at all. So we came to the conclusion that I was indeed sleepwalking. And I don't know how long it took for me to actually get over it, but maybe like a week. I don't know. I was really proud one night because I thought I didn't sleepwalk or I didn't wake up. And I was like really happy. But she said I did. And I was like, what? Lena said like she got really scared and I would sleepwalk sometimes. Most of the time I just went to her room and I would just kind of stand there and then she would guide me back to my room. But like sometimes I would actually start running around the house like a mad fiend and she would have to run after me. It didn't last long. I know I got over it, but back then I did indeed sleepwalk. I don't know why or how or what. I did. I got over it eventually. Though in this case for Lucy, I'm pretty sure Dracula has something to do with it. But sleepwalking is wild. I had a roommate who had to sleep eat. Really? Like Catgun Gaming, what would they eat? Hi Hero Flame, welcome. Like Cat, how are you? How are you all? I'm doing good. Chat, how are the rest of you? Cat was just telling us that their roommate would sleep eat. What would you eat though? Like nothing crunchy, right? Would it be like soft foods, like some bread or something? I feel like it'd be really dangerous to try and like eat anything crunchy. But yeah, I used to sleepwalk. Oh jeez. Be careful. Oh, I slapped my hands. Be careful of sleepwalkers, guys, okay? Always be mindful of them. But yeah, it was just I'm glad I got over it now. At least I hope I did. Lena says I haven't been sleepwalking, so that's good. But yeah, I totally forgot about that. I guess I should have mentioned that. That would be a fun debut story. Anyways, I'll continue. Oops. Okay. 14th of August. East Cliff, reading and writing all day. Lucy seems to have become as much in love with the spot as I am, and it is hard to get her away from it when it is time to come home for lunch or tea or dinner. This afternoon she made a funny remark. We were coming home for dinner and had come to the top of the steps up from the west pier and stopped to look at the view as we generally do. The setting sun, low down in the sky, was just dropping behind Kettleness, and the red light was thrown over on the east cliff and on the old abbey, and seemed to bathe everything in beautiful rosy glow. We were silent for a while, and suddenly Lucy murmured, as if to herself, "His red eyes again! They're just the same." What the heck? Wake up and like a whole jar of peanut butter just be empty and cheese blocks being like a candy bar. Oh my gosh! I mean, peanut butter is delicious. I had like one summer where I just ate a ton of peanut butter. But oh wow, okay. Huh. I mean, at least it was soft foods. That's a good thing. But wow, a jar of peanut butter down. Goodness me. It was such an odd expression coming apropos of nothing. that it quite startled me. I slid around a little so as to see Lucy well without seeming to stare at her, and saw that she was in a half-dreamy state, with an odd look on her face that I could not quite make out. So I said nothing, but followed her eyes. She appeared to be looking over at her seat, whereon was a dark figure seated alone. I was a little startled myself, for it seemed for an instant as if the stranger had great eyes like burning flames, but a second look dispelled the illusion. The red sunlight was shining on the window of St. Mary's Church behind her seat. As the sun dipped, there was just sufficient change in the refraction, the reflection to make it appear as if the light moved. I called Lucy's attention to the peculiar effect, and she became herself with a start, but she looked sad all the time, all the same. It may have been the shooting of that terrible night up there. We never referred to it, so I had said nothing, and we went home to dinner. Lucy had a headache and went early to bed. I saw her asleep and went out for a little stroll myself. I walked along the cliffs to the westward and was full of sweet sadness, for I was thinking of Jonathan. When coming home, it was then bright moonlight, so bright that though the front of our part of the crescent was in shadow, everything could be well seen. I threw a glance up at our window and saw Lucy's head leaning out. I thought that perhaps she was looking out for me, so I opened my handkerchief and waved. She did not notice or make any movement whatever. Just then, the moonlight crept round at the angle of the building, and the light fell on the window. There distinctly was Lucy, with her head lying up against the side of the windowsill and her eyes shut. She was fast asleep, and by her seat on the windowsill was something that looked like a good-sized bird. I was afraid she might get a chill, so I ran upstairs, but as I came to the room, she was moving back to her bed, fast asleep and breathing heavily. She was holding her hand to her throat as though to protect it from the cold. I did not wake her, but tucked her up warmly. I've taken care the doors locked and the windows securely fastened. She looks so sweet as she sleeps. She's paler than in her wont, and there is a drawn, haggard look under her eyes which I do not like. I fear she's fretting about something. I wish I could find out what it is. 15th of August. Rose later than usual. Lucy was languid and tired, and slept on after we had been called. We had a happy surprise at breakfast. Arthur's father is better, and wants the marriage to come off soon. Lucy is full of quiet joy, and her mother is glad and sorry at once. Later on in the day, she told me that the cause, she is grieved to lose Lucy as her own. She is rejoiced that she is soon to have someone to protect her. Poor dear, sweet lady, she confided to me that she has got her death warrant. She has not told Lucy and made me promise secrecy. Her doctor told her within a few months, at most, she must die, for her heart is weakening. At any time, even now, a sudden shock would be almost sure to kill her. Ah, we were wise to keep from her the affair of the dreadful night of Lucy's sleepwalking. 17th of August. No diary for 2 whole days. I have not had the heart to write. Some sort of shadowy pall seems to be coming over our happiness. No news from Jonathan, and Lucy seems to be growing weaker, with some other hours are numbering to a close. I don't understand Lucy's fading away as she is doing. She eats well, sleeps well, and enjoys the fresh air, but all the time the roses in her cheeks are fading, and she gets weaker and more languid day by day. At night I hear her gasping as if for air. I keep the key of her door always fastened to my wrist at night. She gets up and walks about the room, and sits at the open window. Last night I found her leaning out when I woke, and when I tried to wake her I could not. She was in a faint. In a matter of story, she was as weak as water, and cried silently between long, painful struggles for breath. When I asked her how she came to be at the window, she shook her head and turned away. I trust her feeling ill may not be from the unlucky prick of the safety pin. I looked at her throat just now as she lay asleep, and the tiny wounds seemed to not have healed. They are still open, if anything larger than before. The edges of them are faintly white. They're like little white dots with red centers. Unless they heal within a day or two, I shall insist on the doctor seeing them. Okay. Letter, Samuel F. Billington and Son, Solicitors, Whitby to Messrs. Carter, Patterson and Company, London. 17th of August. Dear Sirs, herewith please receive invoice of goods sent by Great Northern Railway. Same are to be delivered at Carfax, near Purfleet, immediately on receipt at Good Station, King's Cross. The house is at present empty, but enclosed please find keys, all of which are labeled. You will please deposit the boxes 50 in number, which form the consignment, in the partially ruined building forming part of the house marked A on the rough diagram enclosed. Your agent will easily recognize the locality as in the ancient chapel of the mansion. The goods leave by the train at 9:30 tonight, and it will be due at King's Cross at 4:30 tomorrow afternoon. As our client wishes the delivery made as soon as possible, we shall be obliged by your having teams ready at King's Cross at the time named and forthwith conveying the goods to destination. In order to obviate any delays possible through any routine requirements as to payment in our departments, we enclose check herewith for £10, receipt of which please acknowledge. Should the charge be less than this amount, you can return balance. If greater, we shall at once send check for difference on hearing from you. You are to leave the keys on coming away in the main hall of the house, where the proprietor may get them on his entering the house by means of his duplicate key. Pray do not take us exceeding the bounds of business courtesy in pressing you in all ways to use the utmost expedition. We are, dear sirs, faithfully yours, Samuel F. Billington and Son. Letter Messrs. Carter Patterson and Company, London, to Messrs. Billington, Son, Whitby, 21st of August. Dear sirs, we beg to acknowledge the £10 received and to return the check of £1.17. 9d. Amount of overplus as shown on the receipted account herewith. Goods are delivered in exact accordance with the instructions and the key left in the parcel in May Hall as directed. We are, dear sirs, yours respectfully, Pro Carter, Patterson's and Company. Mina Murray's Journal. 18th of August. I'm happy today and right sitting on the seat in the churchyard. Lucy's ever so much better. Last night she slept well all night and did not disturb me once. The roses seem coming back already to her cheeks, though she is still sadly pale and wan-looking. If she were in any way an anemiac, I could understand it, but she is not. She is in gay spirits and full of life and cheerfulness. All the morbid reticence seems to have passed from her, and she has just reminded me, as if I needed any reminding of that night, that this was here on this very seat. I found her asleep. As she told me, she tapped playfully over her boot on the stone slab and said, "My poor little feet didn't make much noise then. I dare say poor old Swales would have told me that it was because I didn't want to wake up Geordie." As she was in such a communicative humor, I asked her if she had a dream at all last night. Before she answered, that sweet puckered look came into her forehead, which Arthur, I call him Arthur from her habit, says he loves, and indeed I don't wonder what he does. Then she went on in a half-dreaming kind of way as if trying to recall to herself. I didn't quite dream, but it all seemed to be real. I only wanted to be there in the spot. I don't know why, for I was afraid of something. I don't know what. I remember though, I suppose, I was asleep, passing through the streets and over the bridge. A fish leaped as I went by, and I leaned over to look at it, and I heard a lot of dogs howling. The whole town seemed as if it must be full of dogs all howling at once, as I went up the steps. Then I have a vague memory of something long and dark with red eyes, just as we saw in the sunset. Something very sweet and very bitter all around me at once, and then I seemed sinking into deep green water. And there was a singing in my ears, as I have heard there was to drowning men. And then everything seemed passing away from me. My soul seemed to go out from my body and float about the air. I seem to remember that once the West Lighthouse was right under me, and then there was a sort of agonizing feeling, as if I were in an earthquake, and I came back and found you shaking my body. I saw you do it before I felt you. Then she began to laugh. It seemed a little uncanny to me, and I listened to her breathlessly. I did not quite like it, and thought it better not to keep her mind on the subject, so we drifted on to other subjects, and Lucy was like her old self again. We got home, the fresh breeze had braced her up, and her pale cheeks were really more rosy. Her mother rejoiced when she saw her, and we all spent a very happy evening together. 19th of August. Joy, joy, joy! Although not all joy. At last news of Jonathan. The dear fellow has been ill, and that is why he did not write. I'm not afraid to think it or say it, now that I know. Mr. Hawkins sent me on the letter and wrote himself, oh, so kindly. I am to leave in the morning to go over to Jonathan, and to help to nurse him if necessary, and to bring him home. Mr. Hawkins said it would not be a bad thing if we were to be married. Out there. I have cried over the good sister's letter till I can feel it wet against my bosom. There it lies. It is of Jonathan. It must be next my heart, for he is in my heart. My journey is all mapped out, my luggage ready. I'm only taking one change of dress. Lucy will bring my trunk to London and keep it till I send for it, for it may be that I must write no more. I must keep to it to say Jonathan, my husband. The letter that he has seen and touched must comfort me till we meet. Okay. Okay. I hope that is Jonathan and not just some trap set by Dracula. Getting another water break. Okay. I really do hope that's Jonathan. I hope it's Jonathan. I feel so bad for Mina. Like, she's going through way too much crap to deal with this, okay? Okay. How many more pages for this chapter? Okay. Let's see. Letter Sister Agatha, Hospital of St. Joseph and St. Mary, Budapest, to Miss Wilhelmina. Oh, that's her full name? I didn't know it was her full name. Wilhelmina Murray. Okay. 12th of August. Dear Madam, I write by the desire of Mr. Jonathan Harker, who is himself not strong enough to write, though progressing well, thanks to God and St. Joseph and St. Mary. He has been under our care for nearly 6 weeks. Suffering from a violent brain fever, he wishes me to convey his love and to say that by this post I write for him, Mr. Peter Hawkins, Exeter, to say, with his dutiful respects, that he is sorry for his delay, and that all of his work is completed. He will require some few weeks' rest in our sanatorium in the hills, but will then return. He wishes me to say that he has not sufficient money with him, and that he would like to pay for his staying here, so that others who need shall not be wanting for help. Believe me, yours, with sympathy and all blessings. P.S. My patient being asleep, I open this to let you know something more. He has told me all about you and that you are surely to be his wife. All blessings to you both. He has had some fearful shocks, says our doctor, and his delirious ravings have been dreadful, of wolves and poison and blood, of ghosts and demons. I fear to say of what. Be careful of him always, that there may be nothing to excite him of this kind for a long time to come. The traces of such an illness as his do not lightly die away. We should have run in long ago, but we knew nothing of his friends, and there was on him nothing that anyone could understand. He came in the train from Klausenburg, and the guard was told by his stationmaster that he had rushed into the station shouting for a ticket for home. Seeing from his violent demeanor that he was English, they gave him a ticket for the farthest station on the way thither in the train reach. Be assured that he is well cared for. He has won all hearts by his sweetness and gentleness. He is truly getting on well, and I have no doubt will in a few weeks be all himself. But be careful of him for safety's sake. There I pray God and St. Joseph and St. Mary. Wait, what does STE stand for? I don't think it's saint. I think it's something else. Many, many happy years for you both. Dr. Seward's diary. 19th of August. Strange and sudden change in Renfield last night. About 8 o'clock he began to get excited and sniff about the dog does when setting. The attendant was struck by his manner, and knowing my interest in him, encouraged him to talk. He is usually respectful to the attendant and at times servile, but tonight the man tells me he was quite haughty, would not condescend to talk with him at all, and all he would say was, "I don't want to talk to you. You don't count now. The master is at hand." Oh, master? Who's Dracula? Is it Dracula? The attendant thinks it's some sudden form of religious mania which has seized him. If so, we must look out for squalls, for a strong man, homicide, and religious mania at once might be dangerous, as history has shown. Hi, Yassine! Welcome! Combination is a dreadful one. At 9 o'clock I visited myself. His attitude to me was the same as that to the attendant. In his sublime self-feeling, and the difference between myself and the attendant seemed to him as nothing. It looks like religious mania. He will soon think that he himself is God. These infinitesimal distinctions between man and man are too paltry for the omnipotent being. How these madmen give themselves away. The real God taketh heed lest a sparrow fall, but the God created from human vanity sees no difference between an eagle and a sparrow. Oh, if men only knew. For half an hour or more, Renfield kept getting excited in the greater and greater degree. I not pretend to be watching him, but I kept strict observation all the same. All at once that shifty look came into his eyes, which you always see when a madman has seized an idea, and with it the shifty movement of the head, and which assignment attendants come to know so well. It is Saint. Okay. How come it's written differently than ST? Does ST and STE also mean saint? Is STE just a form to write for, like, female saint? Just out of curiosity. back which silent attendants come to know so well. He became quite quiet and went and sat on the edge of his bed resignedly and looked into a space with lackluster eyes. I thought I'd find if his apathy were real or only assumed and try to lead him to talk of his pets, a theme which never failed to excite his attention. At first he made no reply, but at length said testily, "Bother them all, I don't care a pin about them." "What?" I said. "You don't mean to tell me you don't care about spiders?" Parentheses. Spiders at present are his hobby, and the notebook is filling up with columns of small figures. To this he answered enigmatically, abstains for few. Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Kat. Thank you for telling me. I did not know that. Thank you. What was I saying? Oh, right. The bridemaids rejoice the eyes that wait the coming of the bride, but when the bride draweth nigh, then the maidens shine not the eyes that are filled. Ah. That made no sense. Okay. He would not explain himself, and remained obstinately seated on his bed all the time I remained with him. I am weary tonight, and low in spirits. I cannot but think of Lucy, and how different things might have been. If I don't sleep at once, chloral and the modern Morpheus, C2HCI3O H2O, I must be careful not to let it grow into a habit. No, I shall take none tonight. I have thought of Lucy, and I shall not dishonor her by mixing the two. Tonight shall be sleepless. Glad I made the resolution. Glad that I kept to it. Glad that I kept to it. I had lain tossing about and had heard the clock strike only twice, when the watchman came to me and sent up from the ward to say that Renfield has escaped. Oh, well, that's not good. That's not good at all. I threw on my clothes and ran at once. My patient is too dangerous for her to be roaming about. Those ideas of his might work out dangerously with strangers. The attendant was waiting for me. He said I had seen him not 10 minutes before, assuming asleep in his bed. Then I looked through the observation trap in the door. His attention was called by the sound of the wind being wrenched out. He ran back and saw his feet disappear through the window, and at once sent up for me. He was only in a night gear and cannot be far off. The attendant thought it would be more useful to watch where he should go than follow him, as he might lose sight of him what's getting out of the building by the door. He was a bulky man and couldn't get through the window. I am thin, so with this aid I got out, but feet foremost, as we were only a few feet above the ground, landed unhurt. The attendant told me that the patient had gone on to the left and had taken a straight line, so I ran as quickly as I could. As I got through the belt of the trees, I saw a white figure scale the high wall which separates our grounds from those of the deserted house. I ran back at once and told the watchman to get 3 or 4 men immediately and follow me to the grounds of Carfax, in case our friend might be dangerous. Got a ladder myself, crossing the wall, and dropped on the other side. I could see Renfield's figure just disappearing behind the angle of the house, so I ran after him. On the far side of the house, I found him pressed close against the old iron-bound oak door of the chapel. He was talking apparently to someone, but I was afraid to go near enough to hear what he was saying, lest I might frighten him and he should run off. Chasing an errant swarm of bees is nothing to following a naked lunatic when the fit of escaping is upon him. After a few minutes, however, I could see that he did not take note of anything around him, and so ventured to draw nearer to him. The more so as my men had now crossed the wall and were closing him in. I heard him say, "I'm here to do your bidding, master. I am your slave, and you will reward me, for I shall be faithful. I have worshipped you long and far off. Now that you are near, I await your commands, and you will not pass me by. Will you, dear master, in your distribution of good things?" Seward's comment after this, he's like, "He's a selfish old beggar anyhow." I was like, "Damn, Mr. Seward!" Judging Renfield. He's like, this guy's like such a selfish suck up, I guess. Oh my gosh. He thinks of the loaves and fishes even when he believes he is in real presence. That's funny. He's like, "You should give me a reward for being nice to you." It's like, what? His mania makes a sterling combination. Did I skip? No, okay. When we closed in on him, he fought like a tiger. He is immensely strong, for he was more like a wild beast than a man. I never saw a lunatic in such a paroxysm of rage before. I hope I shall not again. It is a mercy that we had found out his strength and his danger in good time. With strength and determination like his, he might have done wild work before he was caged. He is safe now at any rate. Jack Shepherd himself couldn't get free from the straight waistcoat that keeps him restrained, and he's chained to the wall in the padded room. His cries are at times awful, but the silence that follows are more deadly still, for he means murder in every turn and movement. Just now he spoke coherent words for the first time. I shall be patient, master. It is coming. Coming! Coming! So I took the hint and came to. I was too excited to sleep, but this diary was quieted me, and I feel I shall get some sleep tonight. Like, came to as in like he ran over, right? Or does he get like some kind of sexual thrill out of this? I'm so confused. Mr. Seward. Okay. So this is a letter from Mina to Lucy. Moving my headphones a little. They're like crushing me. Okay, so we're on chapter 9. Letter Mina Harker to Lucy Westenra. Budapest, 24th of August. My dearest Lucy, I knew you will be anxious to hear all that has happened since we parted at the railway station at Whitby. Well, my dear, I got to Hull right and caught the boat to Hamburg and then the train on here. I feel I can hardly recall anything of the journey except that I knew I was coming to Jonathan, and that, as I should have to do some nursing, I'd better get all the sleep I could. I found my dear one, oh so thin and pale and weak-looking. All the resolution has gone out of his dear eyes, and that quiet dignity which I told you was in his face has vanished. He's only a wreck of himself, and he does not remember anything that's happened to him for a long time past. At least he wants me to believe so, and I shall never ask. Yet it's some terrible shock, and I fear it might tax his poor brain if he were to try to recall it. Sister Agatha, who is a good creature and a born nurse, tells me that he had raved of dreadful things which was off his head. I want her to tell me what they were, but she would not only cross herself and say she would never tell, and that the ravings of the sick were the secrets of God, and that if a nurse through her vocation should hear them, she should respect her trust. She was a sweet and good soul, and the next day, when she saw I was troubled, she opened up the subject again, and after saying that she could never mention what my poor dear raved about, added, I can tell you this much, my dear, that it was not about anything which he has done wrong himself, and you, as his wife-to-be, have no cause to be concerned. He has not forgotten you and what he owes to you. His fears of great and terrible things which no mortal can treat of. I believe the dear soul thought I might be jealous as my poor dear should have fallen in love with other girl. The idea of my being jealous about Jonathan. Yet, my dear, let me whisper, I felt a thrill of joy through me when I knew that no other woman was cause for trouble. I am now sitting by his bedside where I can see his face while he sleeps. He's waking. No woman, but a man. What? Sorry. When he woke, he asked me for his coat, and he wanted to get something from his pocket. I asked Sister Agatha, and she brought all of his things. I saw that amongst them was his notebook, and was going to ask him to let me look at it, for I knew then that I must find some clue to his trouble. But I suppose he must have seen my wish in my eyes, for he sent me over to the window, saying he wanted to be quiet alone for a moment. Then he called me back, and when I came, he had his hand over the notebook, and he said, very solemnly, Wilhelmina. I knew then that he was in deadly earnest, for he has never called me by that name since he asked me to marry him. You know, my dear, my ideas of the trust between husband and wife. There should be no secret, no concealment. I've had a great shock, and when I try to think of what it is I feel, my head spins around. I do not know if it was all real or the dream of a madman. You know I had a brain fever, and that is to be mad. The secret is here, and I do not want to know it. I want to take up my life here, with our marriage. For my dear, he had decided to be married as soon as the formalities are complete. Are you willing, Wilhelmina, to share my ignorance? Here is the book. Take it and keep it. Read it if you will, but never let me know, unless indeed some solemn duty should come upon me to go back to the bitter hours. Asleep or awake, sane or mad, recorded here. He fell back, exhausted. I put the book under his pillow and kissed him. I have asked Sister Agatha to keep the spirit to let our wedding be this afternoon, and I'm waiting her reply. She has come and told me that the chaplain of the English Mission Church has been sent for. We are to be married in an hour, or as soon as Jonathan awakes. Lucy, the time has come and gone. I feel very solemn, but very happy. Jonathan woke a little after the hour, and all was ready, and he sat up in bed, propped up with pillows. He answered his I will firmly and strongly. I could hardly speak. My heart was so full that even these words seemed to choke me. The dear sisters were so kind. Please God, I shall never, never forget them, nor the grave and sweet responsibilities I have taken upon me. I must tell you of my wedding present. When the chaplain and the sisters had left me alone with my husband. Oh, Lucy, it's the first time I ever heard the words of my husband. Left me alone with my husband, I took the book from under his pillow and wrapped it up in white paper, and tied it with a little bit of pale blue ribbon which was wound around my neck, and sealed over the knot with the sealing wax, and for my seal I used my wedding ring. When I kissed it and showed it to my husband, told him that I would keep it so that when it would be an outward visible sign for all of our lives that we trust each other, that I would never open it unless it were for his own dear sake, for the sake of some stern duty. Then he took my hand in his, and oh, Lucy, it was the first time he took his wife's hand, and said it was the dearest thing in all the wide world, and that he would go through all the past again to win it if need be. The poor dear meant to have said a part of the past, but he cannot think of the time yet, and I shall no wonder if at first he mixes up not only the month but the year. Oh, my dear, what could I say? I could only tell him that I was the happiest woman in the wide world, and that I had nothing to give him except myself, my life, and my trust, and that with these went my love and duty for all the days of my life. And my dear, when he kissed me, he drew me to him with his poor weak hands. It was a very solemn pledge between us. Lucy, dear, do you know why I tell you all this? It is not only because it is all sweet to me, but because you have been and are very dear to me. It was my privilege to be your friend and guide when you came from the schoolroom to prepare for the world of life. I want you to see now, with the eyes of the very happy wife, whither duty has led me, so that in your own married life you too may be all happy as I am. My dear, please Almighty God, your life may be all it promises, a long day of sunshine with no harsh wind, no forgetting duty, no distrust. I must not wish you no pain, for that can never be, but I do hope you will be always as happy as I am now. Goodbye, my dear. I shall post this at once, and perhaps write you very soon again. I must stop, for Jonathan is waking. I must attend to my husband. Your ever-loving Mina Harker. Oh, man. My eyes are, like, hurting. That was really emotional, though. I'm so glad Jonathan's alive. I am really genuinely happy that Jonathan is alive. I really, really am. I'm gonna get a water break. Water break. Let me rub my eyes real quick. Oh, goodness. Oh, gosh. Okay. Rub. Rubby rub. Oh, that's a lot better. Okay. Perhaps it's the clouds going over the sun outside, and it's like making the room like dim and then not dim and then bright. Right now it's bright, but okay. Oh, that's a lot better. Okay. I shall continue. Letter Lucy Westenra to Mina Harker, Whitby, 30th of August. My dearest Mina, oceans of love and millions of kisses, and may you soon be in your own home with your husband. I wish you could be coming home soon enough to stay with us here. The strong air would soon restore Jonathan. It has quite restored me. I have an appetite like a cormorant, and full of life, and sleep well. You'll be glad to know that I have quite given up walking in my sleep. I think I have not stirred out of my bed for a week. That is when I once got into it at night. Arthur says I'm getting fat. By the way, I forgot to tell you that Arthur is here. We have such walks and drives and rides and rowing and tennis and fishing together, and I love him more than ever. Why did he tell you you're getting fat? Arthur, you don't tell that to a woman. Jeez. He tells me that he loves me more, but I doubt that, for at first he told me that he couldn't love me more than he did then. But this is nonsense. There he is, calling to me, so no more just at present from your loving Lucy. Yes, Mother sent her love. She seems better, poor dear. P.P.S. We're to be married on 28th of September. Dr. Seward's diary. 20th of August. The case of Renfield grows even more interesting. He is now so far quieted that there are spells of cessation from his passion. For the first week after his attack, he was perpetually violent. Then one night, just as the moon rose, he grew quiet, kept murmuring to himself, "Now I can wait, now I can wait." The tenant came to tell me, so I ran down at once to have a look at him. He's still in the straight waistcoat and in the padded room, but his severed look had gone from his face, and his eyes had something of their old, pleading. I might almost say, cringing softness. I was satisfied with his present condition, directed him to be relieved. The attendants hesitated, but finally carried out my wishes without protest. It was a strange thing that the patient had humor enough to see their distress, for coming close to me, he said in a whisper all the while looking furtive at them. They think I could hurt you. Fancy me hurting you, the fools. It was soothing somehow to the feelings to find myself disassociated even in the mind of this poor madman from others. But all the same, I did not follow his thought. Am I to take it that I have anything in common with him, so that we are, as it were, to stand together? Or has he to gain from me some good so stupendous that my well-being is needful to him? I must find out later on. Tonight, he will not speak. Giving the offer of a kitten or even a full-grown cat will not tempt him. He will only say, I don't care any stalking cats. I have more to think of now, and I can't wait. I can wait. I can wait. After a while, I left him. The attendant tells me that he was quiet until just before dawn, and that then he began to get uneasy, and at length violent, until at last he fell into a paroxysm, which exhausted him so that he swooned into a sort of coma. 3 nights has the same thing happened. Violent all day, then quiet from moonrise to sunrise. I wish I could get some clue to the cause. I would almost seem as if there was some influence which came and went. Happy thought, we shall tonight play sane wits against mad ones. He escaped before without our help. Tonight he shall escape with it. We shall give him a chance and have the men ready to follow in case they are required. 23rd of August. The unexpected has happened. How well Disraeli knew life. Our bird, when he found the cage open, would not fly, so all of our subtle arrangements were for naught. At any rate, we had proved one thing, that the spells of quietness last a reasonable time. We shall in future be able to ease his bonds for a few hours each day. I had given orders to the night attendant merely to shut him in the padded room when once he is quiet until the hour before sunrise. Poor soul's body will enjoy the relief even if his mind cannot appreciate it. Hark! The unexpected again. I am called. The patient was once more escaped. Later. Another night adventure. Renfield artfully waited until the attendant was entering the room to inspect. Then he dashed out past him and flew down the passage. I sent word for the attendants to follow. Again we went to the ground of the deserted house, and we found him in the same place, pressed against the old chapel door. When he saw me, he became furious, and had not the attendant seized him in time, he would have tried to kill me. Through holding him, a strange thing had happened. He silently redoubled his efforts, and then suddenly grew calm. I looked round instinctively, but could not see nothing. Then I caught the patient's eye and followed it, but could trace nothing as it looked into the moonlight sky except a big bat, which was flapping its silent and ghostly way to the west. Bats usually wheel and flit about, but this one seemed to go straight on, as if it knew what it was bound for and had some intention of its own. The patient grew calmer every instant, and presently said, You needn't tie me. I shall go quietly. Without trouble, we came back to the house. I feel there's something ominous in this calm. I shall not forget this night. Lucy Westenra's Diary. Hillingham, 24th of August. I must imitate Mina and keep writing things down. Then we can have long talks when we do meet. I wonder when it will be. I wish she were with me again, for I feel so unhappy. Last night I seemed to be dreaming again, just as I was at Whitby. Perhaps it's a change of air, getting home again. It is all dark and horrid to me, for I can remember nothing. But I am full of vague fear, and I feel so weak and worn out. When Arthur came to lunch, he looked quite grieved when he saw me, and I hadn't the spirit to be cheerful. I wonder if I could sleep in Mother's room tonight. I shall make an excuse and try. 25th of August. Another bad night. Mother did not seem to take to my proposal. She seems not too well herself, and doubtlessly she fears to worry me. I tried to keep awake and succeed for a while, but when the clock struck 12, it waked me from a doze. So I must have been falling asleep. There was a sort of scratching or flapping at the window, but I did not mind it, and as I remember no more, I suppose I must have fallen asleep. More dreams. I wish I could remember them. This morning I am horribly weak. My face is ghastly pale, my throat pains me. There must be something wrong with my lungs, for I don't seem ever to get air enough. I shall try to cheer up when Arthur comes, or else I know he will be miserable to see me so. Okay. Letter Arthur Homeland to Dr. Seward. Oh my gosh, we finally get to hear from Arthur! I think all we saw was a telegram and maybe like one line of dialogue from him, and that's it. But I don't think he's had like any personal writings that I've seen. Awesome. I don't know what name to ways to do Arthur. I'll try to the very posh and fancy man. We'll try that. We'll see how that goes. Letter Arthur Homewood to Dr. Seward. Albemarle Hotel, 31st of August. My dear Jack, I want you to do me a favor. Lucy is ill. That is, she has no special disease, but she looks awful, and it's getting worse every day. I have asked her if there is any cause. I do not dare ask her mother, for to disturb the poor lady's mind about her daughter and her present state of health would be fatal. Mrs. Westenra had confided to me that her doom is spoken, disease of the heart, though poor Lucy does not know it yet. I am sure there is something preying on my dear girl's mind. I am almost distracted when I think of her. To look at her gives me a pang. I told her I should ask you to see her, and although she demurred at first, I know why, old fellow. She finally consented. It will be a painful task for you, I know. Her. Old friend, but it is for her sake, and I must not hesitate to ask, nor you to act. You are to come to lunch at Hillingham tomorrow, 2 o'clock, so as not to arouse any suspicion in Mrs. Westenra, and after lunch Lucy will take an opportunity of being alone with you. I shall come in for tea and we can go away together. I am filled with anxiety and want to consult with you alone as soon as I can after you have seen her. Do not fail. Arthur. Telegram. Arthur Holmwood to Seward. 1st of September. I am summoned to see my father, who is worse. Am writing. Write me fully by tonight, post to ring. Wire me if necessary. Letter from Dr. Seward to Arthur Holmwood. 2nd of September. My dear old fellow, with regard to Miss Westenra's health, I am hastened to let you know at once that my opinion there is not any functional disturbance or any malady I know of. At the same time, I am not by any means satisfied with her appearance. She is woefully different from what she was when I saw her last. Of course, you must bear in mind that I did not have full opportunity of examination, such as I should wish. Our very friendship makes a little difficult which not even medical science or custom can bridge over. I had better to exactly what happened, leaving you to draw, in a measure, your own conclusions. I shall then say I have done and propose doing. I found Miss Westenra in seemingly gay spirits. Her mother was present, and in a few seconds I made up my mind that she was trying all she knew to mislead her mother and prevent her from being anxious. I have no doubt she guesses, if she does not know, what need of caution there is. We lunched alone, and as we all exerted ourselves to be cheerful, we got, at some kind of reward from our labors, some real cheerfulness among us. Then Mrs. Westenra went to lie down, and Lucy was left with me. We went into her boudoir, and till we got there her gaiety remained, for the servants were coming and going. As soon as the door closed, however, the mask fell from her face, and she sank down a chair with a great sigh, and hid her eyes with her hand. When I saw her high spirits had failed, I at once took advantage of reaction to make a diagnosis. She said to me very sweetly, I cannot tell you how I loathe talking about myself. I reminded her that as a doctor's confidence was sacred, but that you were grievously anxious about her. She caught on to my meaning at once and settled that matter in a word. For Arthur, everything you choose. I do not care for myself, but all for him. So I am quite free. I could easily see that she was somewhat bloodless, but I could not see the usual anemic signs, and by that chance I was actually able to test the quality of her blood, for in opening a window which was stiff with cord gave way, and she cut her hand slightly with broken glass. It was... oh dear, okay. My eyes. My eyes again. Blink, blink. More blinking. Okay. Blah. Yeah. It was a slight matter in itself, but gave me an evident chance, and I secured a few drops of blood and had analyzed them. The qualitative analysis gives a quite normal condition, shows, I should infer, in itself a vigorous state of health. In other physical matters, I was quite satisfied that there was no need for anxiety, but as there must be a cause somewhere, I have come to the conclusion that it must be something mental. She complains of difficulty in breathing satisfactorily at times, and of heavy lethargic sleep, with dreams that frighten her, regarding which she can remember nothing. She says that as a child she used to walk in her sleep, and that when in Whitby the habit came back, and that once she walked out into the night and went to East Cliff, where Miss Murray found her, but she assures me that the late habit has not returned. I am in doubt, and so have done the best thing I know of. I have written to my old friend and master, Professor Van Helsing. Van Helsing! I didn't know he could be in this. Oh, okay, great. I guess Van Helsing did originate from the Dracula books, huh? That's awesome. Van Helsing! I've written to my old friend and master, Professor Van Helsing of Amsterdam. Wait, Van Helsing was a professor? Oh, wow, okay. Who knows as much about our obscure diseases as anyone in the world. I have asked him to come over, and as you told me that all things were to be at your charge, I have mentioned to him who you are and your relation to Miss Westenra. This, my dear friend fellow, is obedience to your wish, for I am only too proud and happy to do anything I can for her. Van Helsing would, I know, do anything for me for a personal reason. So no matter on what ground he comes, we must accept his wishes. He's a seemingly arbitrary man, but it is because he knows that he is talking about better than anyone else. He's a philosopher and a metaphysician, and one of the most advanced scientists of his day, and he has, I believe, an absolutely open mind. This with an iron nerve, a temper of the ice brook, an indomitable resolution, self-command, and toleration exalted from virtues to blessings, and the kindest and truest heart that beast, these form his equipment for the noble work that he is doing for mankind, work both in theory and practice, for his views are as wide as his all-embarrassing sympathy. I tell you these facts that you may know why I have such confidence in him. I have asked him to come at once. I shall see Miss Westenra tomorrow again. She is to meet me at the stores, so I may not alarm her mother by too early a repetition of my call. Okay. Oh, my headphones are squeezing me. How far away are we from finishing chapter 9? Oh, we're not that far. Okay. Yours truly, John Seward. Letter, Abraham Van Helsing, MD, DPH, Dr. Lit, or to Dr. Seward. That was a lot of doctor stuff. Blah, blah, blah. 2nd of September. Oh man, what voice do I give Van Helsing? I know I'm talking the same, like, voice, but I try to switch up tones as best as I can. What should I do for Van Helsing? The only Van Helsing that's coming to me is the one from Helsing, you know, the anime. That's the only thing that's coming to me. I don't know. I guess I can go for like a gruff voice, but like I don't think that's gonna work out. I don't know, we'll see. 2nd of September. My good friend, when I have received your letter, I am already coming to you. By good fortune, I can leave just at once, without wrong to any of those who have trusted me. For fortune other than it were bad for those who have trusted, for I come to my friend when he call me to aid those he holds dear. Tell your friend that when that time you suck from my wound so swiftly the poison of the Gragine, from that knife that our other friend, too nervous, let slip, you did more for him when he wants my aid, and you call for them than all his great fortune could. But it is a pleasure added to do for him, your friend. It is to you that I come. Have then rooms for me at the Great Eastern Hotel, so that I may be near at hand, and pleased to so arrange that we may see the young lady not too late on tomorrow, for it is likely that I might have to return here that night. But if I need to be, I shall come again in 3 days, and stay longer if I must. Till then, goodbye, my dear friend John Van Helsing. Letter, Dr. Seward to Honored? H-O-N dot. Is that Honored, Arthur? Homewood? Whatever. 3rd of September. My dear Art, Van Helsing has come and gone. He came on with me to Hillingham and found that by Lucy's discretion, her mother was lunching out. So we were alone with her. Van Helsing made a very careful examination of the patient. He's to report to me, and I shall advise you, for of course I was not present all the time. He is, I fear, much concerned, but says he must think. When I told him of our friendship and how you trust to me in the matter, he said, you must tell him that all you think. Tell him what I think, if you can guess it, if you will. Nay, I'm not jesting, this is no jest, but life and death, perhaps more. I asked him what he meant by that, for he was very serious. This was when he had come back to town, and he was having a cup of tea before starting on his return to Amsterdam. He would not give me any further clue. You must not be angry with me. You must not be angry with him, Art, because his very reticence means that all of his brains are working for her good. He will speak plainly enough when the time comes, be sure. So I told him that I would simply write an account of our visit, just as if I were doing a descriptive special article for the Daily Telegraph. He seemed not to notice, but remarked that the smuts of London were not quite so bad as they used to be when he was a student here. I am to get his report tomorrow if he can possibly make it. In any case, I am to have a letter. Is there an author's notes around here? There's an author's note, because it said smuts, and I was like, I don't think it's referring to that kind of smuts. Let me see. Is there? Oh yeah, there is. Okay, what is this chapter? This is chapter 9, note 1. Okay, where is it? Sorry, I'm just curious what he meant by smuts. The smog. Oh, okay, I get it. Okay, yeah, the smog. I guess the bad air and stuff. I didn't know you call it smuts. The only smuts I know is the not safe for work kind. That's all the smuts I know. Well, as the visit, Lucy's more cheerful than on that day I first saw her, and certainly looked better. She had lost something of the ghastly look that so upset you, and her breathing was normal. She's very sweet to the professor, as she always is, and tried to make him feel at ease, though I could see that the poor girl was making a hard struggle for it. I believe Van Helsing saw it too, for I saw the quick look under his bushy brows that I knew of old. Van Helsing has bushy brows? Oh, I know that. They began to chat of all the things except ourselves and diseases with such an infinite geniality that I could see poor Lucy's pretense of animation merge into reality. Then, without any seeming change, he brought the conversation gently round to his visit and suavely said, my dear miss, I have so great pleasure because you are so much beloved. That is much, my dear, even were there that which I do not see. They told me you were in the spirit and that you were of a ghastly pale. To them I say, poof! And he snapped his fingers at me and went on. But you and I shall show them how wrong they are. How can he? And he pointed at me with the same look and gesture as with which one once he pointed me out to his class on, or rather after, a particular occasion which he never fails to remind me of. Know nothing of you young ladies. He's had his madmans go play with, and to go bring them back to happiness, and to those that love them. It is much to do, and oh, but there are rewards, and that we can bestow such happiness. But the young ladies! He has no wife nor daughter, and the young do not tell themselves to the young, but to the old like me, who have known so many sorrows and the causes of them. So, my dear, we will send him away to smoke the cigarette in the garden, whilst you and I have a little talk all to ourselves. I took the hint and strolled about. Man, that's so mean. He's like, he knows nothing, and Seward's like, okay, I'll leave. And he just leaves. He's like, I'm going now. Walks out of the room. And presently the professor came to the window and called me in. He looked grave, but said, I have made a careful examination, but there's no functional cause. With you I agree that there has been much blood lost. It has been, but is not. But the conditions of her are no way anemic. Anemic? I have asked her to send me her maid, that I may ask just one or two questions, that so I may not chance to miss nothing. I know well that she will say, yet there is cause. There is always cause for everything. I must go back home and think. You must send to me the telegram every day, and if there to be cause, I shall come again. The disease, or not to be well as a disease, interests me, and the sweet young dear, she interests me too. She charmed me, and for her, if not for you or disease, I come. As I tell you, he would not say a word more, even when we were alone, and so now, Art, you know all I know. I shall keep stern watch. I trust your poor father is rallying. Must be a terrible thing to you, my dear old fellow, to be placed in such a position between two people who are both so dear to you. I know your idea of duty to your father, and you are right to stick to it, but if need be, I shall send you word to come at once to Lucy, so do not be over anxious unless you hear from me. Okay. Dr. Seward's diary. 4th of September, Zoophagous patient still keeps up our interest in him. He had only one outburst, and that was yesterday at an unusual time. Just before the stroke of noon, he began to grow restless. The attendant knew the symptoms and at once summoned aid. Fortunately, the men came at a run, and were just in time, for at the stroke of noon he became so violent that it took all of our strength to hold him. In about 5 minutes, however, he began to get more and more quiet, and finally sank into a sort of melancholy, in which the state he has remained up to now. The attendant told me that his screams, which in the paroxysm, were really appalling. I found my hands full when I got in, attending to some of the other patients who were frightened by him. Indeed, I can quite understand the effect, for the sounds disturbed even me, though I was some distance away. It is now after the dinner hour of the asylum that as yet my patient sits in a corner, brooding, with a dull, sullen, woe-begone look in his face, which seems rather to indicate than to show something directly. I cannot quite understand it. Later. Another change in my patient. At 5 o'clock, I looked in on him and found him seemingly as happy and contented as he used to be. He was catching flies and eating them, and was keeping note of his capture by making nail marks on the edge of the door between the ridges of the padding. When he saw me, he came over and apologized for his bad conduct, and asked me in a very humble, cringing way to be let back into his own room and to have his notebook again. I thought it well to humor him, so he is back in his room with the window open. He has the sugar in his tea spread on the window-sill, and is reaping quite a harvest of flies. He's not now eating them, but putting them in a box, as of old, and is already examining the corners of his room to find a spider. I tried to get him to talk about the past few days, for any clues of his thoughts would be an immense help to me, but he would not rise. For a moment or two, he looked very sad and said in a sort of faraway voice, as though saying rather to himself than to me, all over, he has deserted me. No hope for me now unless I do it myself. Then suddenly turning to me in a resolute way, he said, Doctor, won't you be very good to me and let me have a little more sugar? I think it would be very good for me. And the flies, I said. Yes, the flies like it too. And I like the flies, therefore I like it. There are people who know so little as to think that my madmen do not argue. I procured him a double supply and left him as happy as a man as, I suppose, in any world. I wish I could fathom his mind. Midnight. Another change in him. I'd been to see Miss Westenra, whom I found much better, and had just returned and was standing in our own gate looking at the sunset, when once more I heard him yelling. As his room is on the side of the house, I heard it better than the morning. It was a shock to me to turn from the wonderful smoky beauty of a sunset over London, with its lurid lights and inky shadows and all the marvelous tints that come on foul clouds even as on foul water, and to realize all the grim sternness of my own cold stone building, with its wealth of breathing misery, and my own desolate heart to endure it all. I reached him just as the sun was going down, and from his window saw the red disk sink. As it sank, he became less and less frenzy. As if it dipped, he slid from the hands that held him and an inert mass on the floor. It was wonderful somehow, that intellectual recuperative power lunatics have, for within a few minutes he stood up quite calmly and looked around him. I signaled to the attendants not to hold him, for I was anxious to see what he would do. He went straight toward the window and brushed out the crumbs of sugar, then he took his fly box and emptied it outside, threw away the box, and shut the window, crossing over sat on his bed. All this surprised me, so I asked him, Are you not going to keep the flies anymore? No, he said. I am sick of all this rubbish. Certainly, it was a wonderfully interesting study. I wish I could get some glimpse of his mind or the cause of his sudden passion. Stop. There may be a clue after it all. If we can find why today his paroxysms came on high noon and at sunset, can it be that there is a malign influence of the sun at periods which affects certain natures, as at times the moon does others? We shall see. Okay. Telegram Seward, London to Van Helsing, Amsterdam. 4th of September. Patient still better today. Telegram Seward, London to Van Helsing, Amsterdam. 5th of September. Patient greatly improved. Good appetite, sleeps naturally, good spirits, color came back. Telegram Seward, London to Van Helsing, Amsterdam. Ooh, man, matter of 2 days. 6th of September. Terrible change for the worse. Come at once. Do not lose an hour. I hold over telegram to homeland till have seen you. All right, and we're at chapter 10, and my throat hurts. Oh, goodness. Boop. Boop. Oh, I was like, where's the music? I don't have my headphones on. There we go. Oh, man, yeah, we read quite a bit. We're still not at the halfway point. Perhaps 1/3 in. But Jonathan's alive, thank God. Can't remember anything, poor soul. But his wife did. That was really sweet what Mina did. I thought that was adorable. It's like, oh, you know. What was I gonna say? Jonathan's alive, though Lucy's doing farewell. Dracula's like draining her blood. I guess she's really pretty, so he wants to. I don't know why he's not switching to different victims. Maybe he thought like, oh, she's great, you know. But whatever, we'll see what happens. I'm just glad Jonathan's alive, y'all. That's all I'm glad for. I'm sad for Lucy, but you know, Mina's not there anymore, so she's like, you know what? She's with you guys. I'm good. Oh, and then we got Van Helsing. Yeah, it's time for warm tea to soothe the throat. But oh dear, no, it's. What does my little servant stat say on my computer? Load. Ah, yes, it is currently 100 where I'm at right now, so certainly no warm tea. I do have a nice water bottle. I have this cute dinosaur water bottle, so I have water. If anything, I'm probably just gonna go read some more right now. Or watch an anime. But definitely not gonna be talking as much right now. Just because, oh, my throat hurts. But yeah, that was fun. I'm just glad, like, Jonathan's alive and everything, you know? So, that's a win. Ah, oh my goodness. Oh, luckily the AC kept up today. I'm not as sweating as I usually am. Anyways, that's the end for today's Dracula reading. We shall continue. I don't know how many chapters we could get in next time. Who knows? But we'll see. Do please join me on Thursday as we try and catch the legendary Pokemon. If not, the VOD will be up. And then next week, as I said, I plan to hopefully play Eve, and I have a hand cam planned. Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell y'all. I actually got to work, so I just plugged it in. And it's working really good. Like, really awesome. So I just plugged it in and we're done. So I have the hand cam ready now. I have it positioned and everything. Well, not like in where I need it to be, but it can hook up. Excuse me, to Streamlabs, no problem. I just need, does this have a little? Yeah, okay, so there's like a little spot underneath it so it can like be mounted on a tripod. And I have a tiny tripod that I'm going to be using. So that should work out. But yeah. So I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the morning, afternoon, or evening, whichever part of the world you're in. But thank you everybody for joining me, and I think I'm going to skip Dracula next week. What was it? Just like probably keep it like an every other week kind of thing, you know? So we shall see how it goes. But next week I definitely want to just do like Eve and hand cam. And if we finish Pokemon, I spoke with, it was Denny and Benz yesterday, and Denny suggested that I do a speed run of Pokemon Shield, or Sword or Shield, one of the two, but I suggest I do a speed run. I thought, okay, so if I finish the legendaries tomorrow, I'll go ahead and try to schedule a speed run when I can, and then I can do the DLC. Get rest to say thank you, Catgun Gaming. I will. I'll get some rest and drink lots of water. So hopefully I can get the DLC up and running. And yeah, we'll see how tomorrow goes. But yeah, bye everybody. Thank you so much for coming by. I really appreciate it. Bye bye.